right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the council meeting. I'm Claire Ponton, Mayor of Mid Coast Council. Just note to everyone, obviously everyone here and who's listening in is aware that we've started at 1 o'clock, but for the recording, we've changed our meeting time to start at 1 o'clock rather than 2 o'clock. Members of the public are able to attend the meeting in person or view the meeting live through the web link on Council's website. The meeting is being recorded and a copy of this recording will be placed on Council's website as soon as practicable after the meeting. The meeting must not be recorded, distributed or circulated by others without the prior written consent of the Council in accordance with Council's Code of Meeting Practice. I'll ask you all to stand, please. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Katung-speaking people, and pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who now reside in the Mid Coast Council area. I extend my respect to elders past and present and to all future cultural knowledge holders. Councillors, please remain standing. We, the councillors of Mid Coast Council, will undertake the duties of the Office of Councillor in the best interests of the Mid Coast community and will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers and authorities and discretions vested in us under the Local Government Act 1993 to the best of our abilities and judgment. Thank you. Now we have a very special item listed on the agenda under special activity today, and we have some guests in the room who are carrying a very important present. So I'm going to ask, which one is going to speak? Yeah, okay. Please come forward. Mr. Eastoe from the Stroud Heritage Conservation Trust, and is this in relation to the repair works that we're doing at Quamby House? So welcome. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Claire. Mayor Ponton, councillors, may I, as Chair of the Stroud Heritage Conservation Trust, thank you for the opportunity to present this cheque for $40,000 to Mid Coast Council to supplement council funding for the heritage maintenance of Quamby, the school that the AA company built nearly 200 years ago in Stroud. In November this year, Stroud is celebrating the bicentennial of Robert Dawson and his 6 trusted Worimi guides passing through the country that reminded him of the Cotswolds in England. Stroud is active in planning its bicentennial celebrations for November this year, and I know the community would love to have you all join in. The Stroud Heritage Conservation Trust was formed in May 2011 by the Friends of St John's and Great Lakes Council. Council and the Friends each provided $50,000 seed capital to a small local sovereign wealth fund, that could generate funds to offset the costs of heritage maintenance and restoration. That fund now sits at $500,000. The creative financing concept was delivered by the partnership between locals, Alan and Daphne Dobbin, and the Great Lakes Mayor, Jan McWilliams, to which we remain very grateful. And it needs to be said that the contribution of the original finance officer for the Heritage Trust, one Steve Embry, was very important. So the first bicentenary of the Sovereign Wealth Fund foresight is Council itself. May I note that with us today is the Treasurer of Stroud and District Heritage Historical Society, Kylie Gordon, and I think he was going to be here, but I haven't seen him yet, Paul Sandlands, who came onto the Trust's board when he was a Mid Coast councillor. Paul has kindly consented to provide the board with that special local government guidance until Council appoints a replacement, a process which is in train. So Claire, may I please present this cheque to you, even though these days our financial people will find complementary ways to ensure that the funds reach Council's coffers.
Indeed. Before I come out there and do that, though, I just really want to acknowledge the work that the Stroud Heritage Group do. It's a wonderful group, do a lot of work. You've got a lot of heritage buildings out there, and it's absolutely fabulous that you can donate this to Council. Quamby House, I think, is going to be much better off for it and for the money that Council's putting into it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I think there he is. I have been in touch with your financial people and they said
Yes.
they got me tied down. Right? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know. I understand they actually can be legal.
Apparently it was printed in Stroud by a local business, which was good.
Excellent, excellent. All right. So moving on to the rest of the agenda today. Apologies or applications for leave of absence. We don't have one at the moment. I will note that Councillor Mick Graham has let us know that he's had car troubles. He's trying to get here. We'll see how he goes with that. Attendance by audio-visual link. This is in accordance with clause 5.22 of Council's Code of Meeting Practice. Councillor Alan Tickle has requested approval to take part in today's meeting by audio-visual link. So I'll put the motion. Everybody happy with that? That is everybody. Thank you very much. And moving to the minutes, I move that the minutes of the 10 December 2025 ordinary meeting, copies of which were distributed to councillors, be taken as read and confirmed as a true record of proceedings. All in favour? Okay, and those against? All right, that was everybody voted. Councillor Mackenzie abstained.
Sorry, Mayor, just for clarity, did we move and second that?
I didn't do that, did I?
First meeting back, it's
I'm
all right.
out of practice.
First meeting back. I would be happy to move it if you like.
Thank you very. No, I moved it.
Then I'd be happy to second.
Yes. So we have a seconder. Thank you. Would you like to take the vote again? Because I'm not sure that was correct. All in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. That was everybody this time. That's what I said. And that's why I did it. Moving on to the business papers. All right. Okay. All right.
That's okay.
I'm being confused by my own notes. Yeah. So first item of business is 13.1, which is matters outstanding. Sorry, what is the problem?
Of interest.
Oh, did I forget that? Where's that?
I'll wear that one so I can inform the mayor. Disclosures of interest.
Oh, there it is. Yep. I call for councillors and senior staff to declare any potential conflicts of interest and their nature. Nothing. Double check. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Oops. Broke my own rule. All right. We're at 13.1. This is the matters outstanding. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? So who's that? Councillor Beasley, and the seconder. Oh no, geez, I am out of practice.
I move that the information in attachment resolution register 4th February 2026 be noted.
Thank you, and a seconder, please. Councillor Cole. I don't know. I must have left my brain behind today. So any discussion of these issues?
I have a number of questions, and I think as there are other questions, I will just ask the first three of mine. First question is through the General Manager to the Executive Manager of Sustainable Development, and I'm reading this because I think that everyone has got a copy of this. The first three items dating from 2019 and 2020 quote, will be considered as part of the review of planning controls for the draft Mid-Coast DCP, unquote. As the draft DCP is dependent on the gazettal of the Mid-Coast LEP, how long after that date might the draft DCP be produced, and has work begun on it in advance of the finalisation of the LEP?
Through the General Manager, the DCP drafting is underway. So we're certainly not waiting until the local environmental plan comes back to council and is gazetted by the state. We're getting as much done as we can, subject to other internal competing projects. At last discussion with the state, we haven't had any further indication on when the gazettal will occur.
Thank you. My second question is to the same Executive Director in regard to Resolution 302, 2023, North Tuncurry Urban Release Area, Statement of Intent for a Draft Planning Agreement. Is there any indication when the draft planning agreement and explanatory note will be received by Council? Has Council begun planning the infrastructure requirements to cope with the anticipated thousands of homes which will be built on this site?
Through the General Manager, the timing's dependent on the applicant. Some recent discussions that we've had with the applicants suggested that they might be ready within the next 2 to 3 months to submit the draft planning agreement. The Minister of Planning approved the rezoning of the urban release area in March 2023, and a lot of the documentation that informed that approval addressed infrastructure needs, and ongoing approvals, including the development application, will continue those discussions.
Thank you. And my third question, once again, to the Executive Manager of Sustainable Development regarding Resolution 381, 2023, Subdivision and Development Infrastructure Damage Bonds. Can you tell me how long the list of those affected is, and what approximately is the total of the bonds held on the list?
Through the General Manager, I actually don't have that information. I'd have to take that on notice and report back to another council meeting.
Yeah, so we'll take that on notice and we'll provide that information to the council laws, but whatever mechanism is appropriate.
From the last time it was reported to council, there's been substantial reduction in the total amount of the damages bonds anyway, and it's only some of the more difficult ones that are still outstanding, but there's certainly not getting any worse in terms that the bonds are being returned as duly processed rather than forming a backlog, which is what had previously happened.
Thank you. Just in regard to the reporting back, sometimes these questions on notice do appear in...
Is this a question?
It's a question to the, well, it's in regard to the reporting back. So this will be through the Mayor to the General Manager. Sometimes the answers appear in a PDF that is put into the agenda minutes. Now, that makes it quite public, and so I'm wondering how the reply will come.
The standard reply wouldn't come through generally the minutes of the council meeting. We could report that to a further council meeting if appropriate, or we could circulate the information to the councillors via the council bulletin or a strategic workshop.
And I might just comment too that sometimes those questions, not in this case, because obviously it's going to take more work, but in many times we ask questions here and the directors are able to report back at the end of the meeting sometimes too. So that happens fairly often. Councillor Miller, did you have a question?
I had a question. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. For the General Manager, there was one other matter which was taken on notice at the December meeting. It was a question that Councillor Graham and I was asking about the paying down of loans that were taken out for roads. It's not on this list, so does the GM have an update on that particular question? No. Or can we have it appear on future matters outstanding? If you don't have an answer today, that would be fine.
Director of Corporate.
Yeah, the intent is to provide that to councillors following this meeting as the Chief Financial Officer is preparing the table for that stuff, and it'll be reported in the agenda of the 25th of February meeting so that it's publicly available as well.
Thank you. Just could I ask that appear in the matters outstanding at the next meeting until it's resolved?
Yep. You can do that.
Thank you. Any further questions or comment? Yes, councillor Beasley.
I'll continue with my questions, Mayor. My next question is directed through the General Manager to the Acting Director of Corporate Services in regard to Resolution 2025-290, options for hosting video recordings of council-produced media. As the expected completion date is the 31st of March, can we expect subsequent council meeting to be hosted and available on the council website? As video recordings of past meetings are saved by council because of state record-keeping requirements, will these also be made available?
Under the new code, we're required to have the audio visual on the website. So that is our intent for this meeting as well currently. And we are required to retain those for the whole length of the term of council, or at least a year, whichever is the longer period. So that will be happening.
And a question which I actually almost know the answer to. This is a question to the General Manager, through the General Manager to Director of Infrastructure and Engineering Services regarding Resolution 2025-442, construction of Boomerang Drive Segment 10, Bluey's Beach. Almost spelled correctly, I'm afraid. Could the Director inform us of its current status, as it appears as a blank in the report?
Through the General Manager, the current status remains largely unchanged from when it was reported to Council, in that the parties involved in the tri-party agreement, in addition to Council, haven't progressed any further from that. So hence there's no updated information in there. We will be sure to update that in future months if the delegations that Council has granted to the General Manager to proceed with that work are enacted.
So, Director, should I presume that the roadwork that's taking place on Boomerang Drive this morning is council work for just general repairs?
No, there is a number of approvals that are in place anyway, and once the agreement is executed for us to go into the three-way complete roadworks, then that'll be updated there. Any of the works that are happening associated with the independent development. So there's a number of road crossings that they need to do to provide utility services and connections to those developments, which they'll do as a matter of course, because they've got those approved externally to the three-way agreement around the road improvements.
And this is another question for through the General Manager to the Acting Director of Corporate Services. Resolution 2025-448, Code of Meeting Practice. Have there been any amendments to the Model Code of Meeting Practice, which forms the basis of our code provided by the OLG, and have there been further recommendations from the OLG?
No, haven't received anything. We've run through a process of adopting our code, which is based on the model, and as you know, we can make it more robust, but we can't erode from it. And no, we haven't received any further correspondence from the Office of Local Government regarding any proposed changes to that. I do know it was debated in Parliament late December, and will be back on the agenda, I believe, mid-February when Parliament reconvenes, but I have no other information.
Thank you. And my last question is in relation to Councillor Howard's matter of urgent business at our last meeting, that the Mayor right to transport for New South Wales seeking additional on-water boating compliance control measures in the Great Lakes region this summer season. Have we received a reply from the Minister?
No reply has been received as yet.
Anything further on this item? No. Okay.
Can I speak to Councillor Beasley's? Am I in a position to speak to Councillor Beasley's inquiry there on that? On my matter of urgent business?
Not really, unless someone asks you a question.
My only comment, Councillor Beasley, was that whilst the Mayor may not have received a reply to her letter, I did note that there was a considerable decrease in I guess, online social sentiment, indicating that there was problems with jet skis over summer. Certainly there wasn't any of there didn't appear to be any evidence of jet ski and boating operators herding dolphins, which was a catch cry the previous summer, or hassling or driving erratically in non-wake zones. So I think the mayor's letter may well have had an effect.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Whoa, what happened there? That's all right. So that's a vote for from everybody. Motion's carried. Moving to the next item, which is 14.1. Public spaces. The report presents a summary of the small donations program applications received between 1 July and 3rd. 14. I've turned over too many. I want 15.1. There we go. 14.1. On-site wastewater management strategy. Much more exciting. 2026 to 2031. Public exhibition. The report seeks Council's approval to place the draft Healthy Land, Healthy Water, Mid-Coast Council's on-site wastewater management strategy 2026 to 2031 on public exhibition in accordance with Council's community engagement strategy. Okay. Oh, okay. Mover, please. Councillor Turnbull.
I move that the draft Healthy Land, Healthy Water Mid-Coast Council's on-site wastewater management strategy 2026 to 2031 be placed on public exhibition in line with Council's adopted community engagement strategy.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Wilson. Would you like to discuss it, Councillor Turnbull? Councillor Wilson.
I think this is a good piece of work. There has been some concerns or a sentiment that there is a tax on septic systems, which you could argue that there is, because we do need to provide a service where we've got obligations under the Local Government Act and also upholding public health. So we do need to get an income. Now, this system that's being introduced is a risk management approach. So it's not one size fits all. It is those who have got higher risk will probably pay more. Those who have got lower risk will pay less. So it is a fairer cost structure to recover our costs. It's a good piece of work, and please take the time to read it if you're one of the 13,000 who've got septic tanks, and provide your feedback.
Thank you. Any other speakers? So I need one of you, sorry, who's got their hand up? Councillor McKenzie.
Yes, I commend the report on one hand, and that was meant to be turned off. My humble apologies. User pay system is fair to everybody. At the minute, just for education, we already have a system in place to manage on-site sewage management. Council has approved contractors to manage it. The contractors charge the people that own or operate, is the term, the on-site wastewater management system. That system works and is functioning quite well. Council at this point in time for 95% of these systems performs no inspections whatsoever. I don't see the point in approving a new waste management strategy system for something that we already pay contractors to do. So in its current format, no, I will not be voting for this particular display.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I note Councillor McKenzie's comments. So there was a report, and of course the report is attached here. It's quite a good strategy. It's a very detailed strategy, and we had a presentation in December last year at a council workshop. Essentially, this is going to a user pays, which is what Councillor McKenzie has previously asked for. But I think there are consequences of doing so, which I don't agree with. So this is based on, at the moment, the annual fee is $89 per system. And what council has done is say, we will inspect every single system over a 5-year period. And so what they've said is there are high-risk systems, and the cost of that inspection is $380. Whether you do it once a year or every 5 years, the cost of going and doing an inspection works out at $380. So if you're in a high-risk system, like you're near an oyster catchment area, then that will be inspected every year and you'll pay $380 every year. If you're in a low-risk system, then you're going to get checked once every 5 years. So you will now get checked. You'll get checked once every 5 years. And what you'll do is, so you don't get sort of a boom and bust, you'll pay $76 a year, which is 1/5 of the fee. So over the 5 years, you've paid for your inspection. So it's a fee-for-service basis, which sounds fair and it sounds like a good thing. But the problem is the unintended consequences. If you've got a low-risk system, you've gone from $89 a year, and this will take you to $76 a year. Great, so you're saving $13 a year, fine. If you've got a high-risk system, which is about 550 people have a high-risk system, your fees are going to go from $89 to $380 per year. So that's the problem about changing it to user pays as opposed to spreading out the costs. About 12,000 people are going to save $13 a year, which they probably won't notice, but it's a saving and that's great. But the 550 people, they're going to pay about 3 times as much as they're currently paying. So it is user pays, but I don't think it spreads out the costs in an appropriate way. I think actually a flat fee across all systems that spreads the load is better. So I disagree with the philosophy behind this. It's difficult to say to somebody, I'm sorry, but your septic fees have just tripled. However, this recommendation is asking that it be placed on public exhibition. This recommendation isn't asking whether I like it or not. This recommendation is saying, should we place it on public exhibition and see what the public thinks? And I always think asking the public what they think is a good idea. So whilst I disagree with the premise of the strategy, I'll absolutely be voting to put it on public exhibition.
Thank you. Further speakers? Councillor Beasley?
Primarily, I agree with both. Is that a technical glitch that's
Don't
happening?
know, just keep going, see what happens.
With both councillors who've spoken before me, in fact 3 have, at least the last 2. I would hope that, in fact, implore the owners of these systems to, when this is placed on public exhibition, to make a submission so that we better understand their situation. With 30,000 systems out there, let's hope there's a good number of those people who tell us what their feelings are about this so that we can then adjudge this fee system so that it hopefully is as fair as it possibly can be.
Indeed. Anything else? No? Put the motion. That is 4. And those against? So it was 1 against. The remaining, how many? There's 9. Sorry, 4. So it's carried. Now we get to 15.1. This is a small donations program. Sets out the applications received between July and December of last year in accordance with grants, donations and sponsorship policy. Could I have a mover, please? Maybe someone on the panel? No? Councillor Beasley?
I move that the information in the small donations program report be noted.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak to it?
Seconder.
Oh, sorry, seconder. Thank you, Councillor Tickle. Thank you. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Beasley?
Briefly, I would just ask a question through the General Manager to the Executive Manager of Public Spaces. The Manager tell us why the 2 applications failed, please.
Through the General Manager, only one, there were 2 ineligible applications. I cannot provide a response around the St Joseph's Primary School application, and I might defer to one of the councillors on the panel to answer that question. But in regard to the men's shed application, not an incorporated organisation, and they didn't have a bank account for us to deposit the income into. So they've been advised if they become incorporated, have an appropriate bank account, or they can find a community group to auspice their application. They're open to reapply.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a similar question, but I think I'm actually going to suggest a solution. So what we'll note from the records is that this is good. So this is a great small donations program, and it's good that we're able to give. It's not a large amount, but it helps people. So this has helped Margaret Jerd College build a yarning circle, which is great. It's helped the Burrell Creek Youth and Community Association purchase some yoga mats and equipment so they can have more activities at their hall for Burrell Creek, which is great. There does, I think, need to be some tightening up or some looking again at the policy. So having Barrington Public School approved for one set of school awards and then St Joseph's Primary not approved for another set of awards just says to me that the policy needs to be tightened up a little bit. So what I'd like to do is propose, if the mover and seconder are happy, propose some different wording, which is that the information in the small donations program report be noted, and just, sorry, minute keepers, to add to that, and that the policy be referred to the policy working group for review. I'm aware that it has been recently reviewed, but I think there seems to be some confusion around school awards and whether they're in or out, and we just need to clarify that, I'd suggest. So if the mover and seconder would be happy with that.
I am. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Beasley? Okay, so that's been accepted. So we can have those amended words up on the screen, if we could, please. Happy with that, Councillor Miller and mover and seconders? All right. Any discussion on this matter? All right.
Yes.
Councillor Tickle? Yep.
Yeah, just thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, I can understand the reasoning why the Barrington Public's P&C did receive some funding to purchase scientific calculators. I think that's a different ball game rather than a lump of funds to go to purchasing awards. The scientific calculators have a specific purpose with education. Certainly there's a shortage of engineers, which council needs. Mathematics skills is paramount to that. I think that's encouraging education in that area, which certainly council are looking for. So I think that's a little bit different, but this ought not be taken by the public as a precedent that there will be money handed out for school awards. And I think the suggestion by Councillor Miller, which I thank you, will be a good way to consider the process and the parameters so that we've got some clear guidelines in future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Oh, that is annoying. In that case, I'll put the motion. All in favour? That is everybody. Motion's carried.
Mayor, might I just make a suggestion? This noise in the background possibly is coming from Councillor Tickle's
So can I suggest Councillor Tickle, then when you're not speaking, to put your mic on mute? I'm not an IT expert, but I'm sure that will solve the problem.
Thank you. We'll give that a go. Thank you. All right. Thank you for that. All right, so we've done 15.1. Next one is 15.2, meeting notes, the Aboriginal Reference Group. The report presents the notes of the Aboriginal Reference Group meeting that was held on the 17th of December 2025. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Irving.
I move that the Aboriginal Reference Group meeting notes of 17th of December 2025, attachment 1, be noted.
Thank you. And a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Do you have anything to say, Councillor Irving? No? Anyone else? No? I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's everybody. Thank you. Carried. 15.3, Manning Entertainment Centre, Financial Sustainability. 15.3. The report responds to Council Resolution 2025/415 of 10 December 2025 by outlining the Manning Entertainment Centre's operational and financial performance over the past 5 years. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry for not flagging this earlier, but I'm going to change slightly the wording just because I think point 2 is a little strange. So I'm going to move that Council 1, note the report, and 2, note that a report will be provided late in 2026, and the rest of the words are the same, providing the results of the 2026 Performing Arts Connections Australia Benchmarking Venue Survey. I think it would be strange to move that we'll receive a report in late 2026, so just noting that we will receive that report, I think is just
neater.
better wording on that.
Yeah. So the minute takers happy with that?
Apologies, minute takers. So point 2, note that a report will be received in late 2026.
Question, Mayor, if I could, please.
Just hang on.
Will be received in late 2026.
Yep. So we're happy with that. Okay, Councillor Tickle, did you want to say something?
Yes, Mayor, just a question of the mover, Councillor Miller. If you look at the report, it makes mention of the third dot point of the motion and the resolution of council was to hold a meeting open to council staff and public to look into options and new innovation to increase financial sustainability. While that's mentioned in the body of the report, that remains outstanding, and maybe a consideration of adding that additional dot point, noting that is yet to occur as well, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Councillor Tickle. I'm happy to leave the recommendation as it is, noting that is already picked up in the matters arising, so I think it's sufficiently covered elsewhere. But thank you, Councillor Tickle.
And sorry, I thought you were seconding that, Councillor Tickle, so I need a seconder. Councillor O'Keefe, thank you. Can I just ask the minute takers if everybody agrees to turn the volume down a little bit? I'm finding it's really booming through from the from Councillor Tickle. Is that possible? Just a touch? Thank you. Yeah, no, Councillor Tickle can't do it. Or did I say something wrong? No. All right, so it's been moved. We've got a seconder, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. This came from a motion from Councillor Graham, who's not present. Otherwise, I'm sure he'd be happy to speak to this, and I'm sure he will in future when this comes back. But I'm happy to move this. I do have a couple of questions which I'll ask a little later. But the piece that really stands out to me in this is the national benchmarking of all theatres through the Performing Arts Centre Association. And that's really the only national organisation that looks across all theatres, council-owned and non-council-owned, although majority of theatres are council-owned. And it benchmarks across many, many levels, including financial returns, activity, what's called dark days, how many days is the theatre sitting there not being used. And that gives us the ability to benchmark, because we can say, oh yes, the Manning Entertainment Centre should be bringing in $16 gazillion every week and be used 28 times an hour. But you have to benchmark it against other similar entertainment centres and say, are we doing as well as or better than our peers, which is what I said in the last meeting. And that's what the benchmarking enables us to do. So the last national benchmarking of all theatres, noting that the new one's coming later this year, it was last done in 2023. And the figure that stands out in this report from that benchmarking is the average net operating cost for theatres is just over $1 million a year. You take all the theatres, Dubbo and Orange and Port Macquarie and Karratha and Mandurah and everywhere else. And it's an average net operating cost of just over $1 million a year. And the MEC net operating cost is $390,000 a year. So if you look straight at the benchmarking, going, are we doing okay? How's it going? Are we costing ratepayers more than we should? Well, the average net operating cost of all theatres is just over $1 million, and the entertainment centre is well less than half that, with $390,000. I do have some other questions I said that I'll ask the Director a little later in the debate, but I will be commending this report as an excellent answer to Councillor Graham's notice of motion at the last meeting.
Thank you. Councillor O'Keefe, did you have anything?
Yes. My question is through the General Manager. I'm not entirely sure who to, given where the reports come from, but it's about the layout of the report, specifically the financial tables. I'm just going to go out there and say that even I have trouble reading them. I'm sure any member of the public that tries to read these in publicly available documents have trouble reading them. Is there any way that this can be made a little more user-friendly for people out there? Yes, I understand that there is probably a statutory reason why they're put the way they are, but can we tick that box and then tick another box where we make it easier for lay people to read where the money, and just a few examples. One is you see word surplus and deficit bracketed, and then you'll see the word surplus bracketed with a minus sign. That appears later in the agenda. And then you'll see negatives in the income column. Now, I would read that as a loss, but I'm not sure. And I want to be sure. I want to be able to look at that and say, yep, that's how much money went in, that's how much money came out. And I'd like anyone who bothers to read this to be able to read that as well. So is there a way we can make this easier for everyone to read?
We'll take those comments on board for future reporting. But yeah, I mean, you could actually see income's clearly spelled, expenses are clearly spelled. Income's an income, right? So yeah, we'll take those comments on board and we'll look at our future reporting.
It's not just this, though.
It also comes up in our financial reporting.
Lots, yeah.
That we
lots
do
of-
as well. So we'll look at that.
Thank you.
Anything further on this? Councillor Beasley?
In regard to Councillor Tickle's comment at the start about point 3 of the original resolution, I was going to ask for an amendment to this motion that included something in relation to further polling using Have Your Say. But on having read through the report, I consider that the market research seems to have been absolutely excellent. The 913 detailed responses from the Golden Ticket campaign, plus targeted surveys that have been done over the last 12 months and ongoing market research, I think, is enough to give council a very good indication of what the public thinks.
Thank you. Can I perhaps help to resolve this issue about the missing item 3 by pointing to page 17, which says it's you're requiring the allocation of staff, and ask the GM to comment on that, please?
So the reason I wasn't commented in the report, because the biggest piece of work is this report here. And the second component is engagement. So item 3 says, hold a meeting open to council staff and public to look into options and new innovations to increase financial sustainability, which we will do. We're looking at late March or early April to hold that meeting, if that helps. I just need to confirm a date, but that's what we're trying to do, or that's what we will do. I'm very keen to have that done before we launch our community conversations program, because then it's a whole body of work on DPOP engagement as well.
Could I ask a question?
Question, yeah.
Through the Mayor to the General Manager. In presentation to this meeting, will we have the information that has been gained from the detailed responses?
Yeah, I will. There will be a presentation at that meeting, which council staff and the public. But it's not even a trick. We need to ensure that we receive constructive feedback. Is really the goal of this. So we need to work out a good mechanism to do that. So yeah, there'll be a presentation provided, 100%. We're looking at a potential tour of the facility for those who are interested beforehand, so people will get a bit of awareness of what we actually do, if they weren't already aware. And then there'll be a presentation and there'll be a mechanism for people to provide feedback.
Anything further, Councillor Wilson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through the General Manager to the Executive Manager of Public Spaces. I've got a couple of questions. I do find this report quite difficult to understand because the figures are they're not all together to understand profitability. So when I look at the first part of the report, it talks about net cost of service at 1.12 million. So is that a per annum? And what makes that up? Is that all costs?
Through the General Manager, that is all costs associated with providing not just the services at the MAC, but also at the Manning Regional Art Gallery and our cultural development section of council. So it's all of those functional areas. So the MEC is a subset of that. So that covers wages, maintenance, operational costs and the like. Yeah, all of those utilities, yes.
Yeah, okay. So do we know what the margin is in the MEC, like profit over cost as a percentage?
I can't answer that at the moment. I'd have to take that question on notice and come back to you.
Okay. I also note in the report that there is tourist or a local economy benefit, which is great, and we want to encourage a growth in the area in the local economy. So, would we know with the benefit that we're getting from the MEC or the profit, and if we add the benefit to the economy, we might get a return on investment type percentage, or I'm calling it something weird like economic benefit return or margin. Is it possible to get that information?
Through the General Manager, I'm not sure. That's something I'd have to take on notice.
That would be difficult to obtain through our ED team. We'll check what we can, but I think that's going to be very unlikely.
Okay. I just see it's noted in the report, that's all. And finally, when we look at the income, you look at the table that Councillor Keith talked about. It had operating income at minus 460K, which I assume that's the cost to the ratepayer. However, on page 22, I add up all the other incomes and it's 2.2 million. Is that correct? Is that the real income?
No, it's not. So that's gross income generated through the facility. So that includes gross box office ticket sales. Some of that income goes directly to the show providers and the like. So that isn't net income to council.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So do we have an annualised cost for the MEC for this year?
For this year, we don't at this point in time. Our financial system, the way our costs are recorded, show a deficit of about $320,000. That actually includes costs that we're incurring for subsequent financial years. So we have to pay upfront costs associated with shows that are going to be provided next year and possibly the year after. So those costs will be backed out at the end of financial year. So we'll have an accurate operating cost at the end of financial year. But yeah, it's hard to ascertain those figures at this point in time.
I understand. So, but we do annualise the income, which is like 6 months by 2.
Through the General Manager, that is a simplified forecast. So it's not based on any seasonal fluctuations. It is very much that's for the first six months of the year. We'll double it. We do recognise that we see less income derived at the back end of the calendar year. So as we head into Christmas, we also see a downturn in income in January. So it's a reasonable assumption. It won't be 100% accurate, and we're certainly hoping to exceed what we've assumed in those tables.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Executive Manager. Now, can I talk to it?
Please.
I'm not going to be voting for this because it is incomplete in its communication. Look, it doesn't meet the intent of Councillor Graham's motion. Now, I've got to acknowledge that since the restructure, and I think it was in 23, there's been a lot of work done in a very short time to turn it around. And you're actually seeing the revenue come up and you're seeing the KPIs come up, which is fantastic. But when it comes to profitability and financial sustainability, it's really hard to work it out for the average Joe and even myself, so I won't be voting for it.
Any further speakers? Councillor Irving?
I attended the launch of the MEX program for 2026 and I was pleasantly surprised at what I saw. Very professional performers, gave us a taste of what we were going to expect in 2026. I just feel that the MEC is heading in the right direction, just from a feeling point of view. Having these sort of events are very valuable, and the fact that they came out with a glossy program, I'd never seen that before, and I took it home, and the more we circulate those programs, the better. I thought it was a great idea that they have a membership, which is only $20, and you get discounts to shows, and you get information about when shows are coming along. So everything to me seems like it's very organised and very progressive in their approach to getting the word out to the people. And the fact that it's increased by 54% from the 1st of July to the 31st of December 2025 compared to the previous period last year. I think that's fantastic. I'm not one that will read all those facts and figures. I mean, the figures of the tables, on the tables. I read the outcomes underneath. And the fact that it is progressing is a really positive thing. The fact that the operating costs are much lower than the average in other performing arts centres, I think that's fantastic as well. And yeah, I think the main thing is that we get the word out that these great performers are coming, and spread the word to go and attend the MEC.
Thank you very much. Any
It's an
further
asset.
speakers? It is.
Definitely.
Any further? Alan, sorry, Councillor Tickle. Parroting you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will understand the concerns of Councillor Wilson. I mean, the motion is that we note the report. We can certainly note it. I have concerns about the content, which has been articulated well by Councillor O'Keefe. I mean, a lay person looking at it, it looks like we're doing very well financially. It looks like a mass surplus, and you know we're doing great. But in fact, we're starting with a negative figure in the income column, which is easy for people to be confused. And I share Councillor O'Keefe's view, and I did express that to other councillors. I also note in the report that when you start looking at net cost of service on the page 1 of the report, lumping together cultural services altogether, when the resolution of Councillor Graham holding salary refers to the MEC, that's also a concern. But I will pick up the points made by Councillor Irving, and I have said this before. It's very difficult or you can't expect, whether it be an art gallery, whether it be an entertainment centre, whether it be sporting fields or a swimming pool, to turn a profit. But what this sort of facility does is makes the community vibrant. It gives opportunity for people who wish to express themselves by way of arts in various forms. It's a great feel good for the community because they can celebrate music and various other forms of cultural pursuits, whether it be visual arts, whether it be printed art, whether it be music, and so on. It's all about having a great place to live in, and you will never turn a profit in that sort of enterprise. But I think the intent of Councillor Graham's original motion is, well, that's great, let's do that, but let's look at ways where we can reduce that loss, where we can look at the sustainability, where we can do the job really well, where we get a great outcome, improve the outcome, input from the community. What are we doing great? How can we do it better? So that we can get as good a result as we possibly can in this space. So that's the whole intent of the resolution from Councillor Graham, which I seconded and I supported the intent. But I think we've got a way to go yet hearing from the public, because really those from the bottom up in this sort of thing, they look and they will tell us, look, this is great, but we can do this better. So let's hear that. This is doing really well. We should concentrate our energies on that because we get a great outcome. So I think let's look at the dot point 3. Let's take it on board with people. You're never going to make a profit in this, but the community loves the entertainment centre. They love what it provides to us. And it is all really about a community that a great place to live, and this is part of it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further speakers? No? Well, I'll go with Councillor Miller's question first.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is to the Executive Manager of Public Spaces through the General Manager. It's similar to Councillor Wilson's question. The graph at the top of page 22 and the table on the same page shows annualised ticket income and annualised expenses, which appears to be year-to-date doubled. But anyone who knows anything about theatre knows that Q2 is going to be big. September, October, November, December is going to be dance schools and lots of concerts and a very busy time. Q3, January, almost nothing happens. The place is dead most of the month. February, not a lot happens. So taking the first 6 months and doubling it, how much confidence should we have in that figure? And I'll bang in a second question. Later today, we're looking at quarterly budget reviews, which includes some movements around the entertainment centre. Is that based on these annualised projections?
Through the General Manager, in response to the first question, yes, it is a simplified way of forecasting income. You did talk about Q2 being highly activated at facilities like the MEC. We don't, I guess a lot of those community activities don't generate the income that the bigger productions do. So is the advice from staff. So we are certainly seeing, based on the program that was released at the season launch, there is a really comprehensive program scheduled for 2026. And yeah, we think it's a reasonable assumption.
Can I go to the General Manager first? Okay. Councillor Howard.
I rise with some trepidation on this because when this matter came up, Councillor Graham's notice of motion, I think it was in December, about the MEC, I actually stepped out because I do have a perceived conflict of interest here, given the nature of my family's business. However, I made the decision with this item to stay in the room because I believe we are just noting a report. I would state, though, that whilst I accept the argument that cultural facilities will never, particularly publicly subsidised ones, will probably never make a profit because of the nature of the facility and the nature of the, I guess, the sector in general is that they rarely make a profit, publicly subsidised cultural centres. I will say that I still think there are ways that buildings such as this and facilities such as this can make less of a loss. And noting that the MEC loses about 390 grand a year at the moment, hopefully reducing to 320 at the end of this year, I still believe that there are ways that the MEC could lose less money. And I think something that's not noted in the report, that could be noted in the report, is the possibility of corporate sponsorship. Why is it called the Manning Entertainment Centre? Why don't we not have a corporate sponsor taking over naming rights, paying us a fee every year to have it, instead of known as the Manning Entertainment Centre, known as the Stack Centre or the Saxby Centre or some other centre, you know, and reducing our exposure by perhaps, you know, somebody coming in and being able to take on the sponsorship name and potentially reducing our loss and obviously the cost for each ratepayer. That's just my only comments on this.
Thank you. Anything further? No, I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and against is 5. So what do I normally do in this situation? I've got a casting vote, which is normally to go with the staff recommendation. So I will do that. So the motion's carried.
Oh, can we just identify who voted? Can we get to the people who voted?
Okay, stick your hands up, all those people who voted against. Do you need the people who voted for?
Okay.
All right, thank you. We need to activate this thing where we can vote on these devices. So moving to 16.1. This is a tender for a major and minor civil works project panel contract. The report provides the outcomes of the tender process and adds contractors to our established panel of contractors that perform minor and major civil works. I have a mover, please. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the following contractors are added to the existing panel of contract for minor and major civil works for the period to 28th of February 2027, so that's a year, with the provision for 1 12-month extension, subject to suitable and up-to-date insurance details are being provided. The companies are Brown Environment Earthworks Planning Proprietary Limited, Civil Domain Proprietary Limited, Doval Constructions Queensland Limited, Pan Civil Proprietary Limited, State Civil Proprietary Limited, Unite Eastern Proprietary Limited, and Whittaker Civical Proprietary Limited. On the second point, that Tommy Gunn Earth Moving Proprietary Limited be conditionally appointed to the panel contract for minor and major civil works, consistent with the other contractors, but not to be used until they have their management systems successfully audited. Third point, that the General Manager be delegated authority to execute the associated contract documents.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Turnbull. Do you wish to discuss it, Councillor Wilson?
Just one question to the Director of Infrastructure and Engineering. Why the change?
Through the Mayor, this is part of a fundamental part of the original contract. So the original contract has been running for several years. It has an annual process whereby we go back to the market and collect any new contractors that weren't included in the original process. So businesses that have moved into the area or that wish to expand into the area or have just started up are able to become eligible to undertake works under that contract. So it's a way of continuing to add to it until the contract is called in a period of time. Otherwise, they may miss out for up to 5 years, including all the extensions that are applicable under the contract. And that would be essentially prohibitive to that business in accessing things like we have at the moment, which is a potentially very large flood-based program, which I'm sure most businesses that start up would be really interested in being able to avail themselves of that work.
Just a further question. I see that Tommy Gunn, Earth Moving Proprietary Limited, we need to audit their management systems because we don't want to inherit a basket case or a problematic business. Does that audit, do we also look at their books to see if they have won the right insurance and they're an ongoing business, so we're not left holding the can?
Yep. So in terms of the contract, they have to submit evidence of an externally certified management system for environmental quality, safety, the three key major items of that. They submitted the evidence, of the system's existence, but not of it being, they're in the process of having it externally audited and certified. So as soon as they produce that certificate, then they would meet the requirements for the specification and they can be used. So hence the segregation out of that. Some of the other companies that had tendered were actually excluded on the basis they don't have those systems applicable, so therefore they don't meet the minimum requirements of the tender. They have a non-conforming tender. But because it's really a matter of timing for these guys, when they do get that, then they become eligible for work.
Thank you. Anything further on this? I need to note that Councillor O'Keefe has left the room. I need to put the motion. All in favour? That is everybody who was here. It's carried. Moving to 16.2. Tender Water and Systems Professional Services Panel. The report provides the outcomes of the open request for tender process to establish a panel of consultants to perform a range of professional consulting services related to water and sewerage. Move it, please. Sorry, someone here. Councillor Miller, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that all consultants listed within this report be placed on Midcoast Council's Water and Systems Professional Services Panel, proposed to run from 5th of February 2026 until 4th of February 2029, with 2 possible contract extensions of 12 months, each dependent of council requirements and satisfactory consultant performance. 2, that the General Manager be authorised to execute the deeds of standing offer between council and individual panellists.
Thank you. And a seconder. Councillor Turnbull. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Miller. Councillor Turnbull, any comments, questions? Councillor Beasley.
Taking into account what the Director had said in regard to the last item, as stated in both recommendations, these motions come before us to establish a streamlining of the procurement of water and sewage consultancy services and to support the efficient delivery of Council's capital works program so that things don't need to come back to us for approval. It's simply done. These are sensible motions, sensible resolutions for Council to take on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Keefe's returned. Any further comments, questions? No. I'll put the motion. All in favour? And against? That's 1 against. Everybody else voted for. It's carried. 16.3 is tender construction of Gloucester sewer treatment plant replacement. The report provides the outcomes of the tender process conducted to engage a contractor for the construction of the Gloucester sewage treatment plant replacement. Can I have a move, please? Councillor Howard.
Yes, I move that the contract for construction of Gloucester Sewage Treatment Plant be awarded to Lead Engineering Proprietary Limited, with authority delegated to the General Manager to execute the required contract documents.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Turnbull. Councillor Howard, do you wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
No, Councillor Howard. Sorry, Councillor Howard, Councillor Turnbull. Any other speakers? Councillor Beasley.
I have two questions. First question is for the Director of Infrastructure and Engineering Services through the General Manager. The tender price exceeds the budget by $8 million. What contingencies are in place to manage further cost overruns?
Through the General Manager, as part of our project management framework, each of the projects, particularly ones of high value or high risk, have a more onerous process that they flow through in our framework, particularly looking at making sure that risk management is addressed as part of the project management plan. So in relation to this project, we've been through a design and internal review process. So when we went out to tender, we've actually applied quite a lot of scrutiny to the design to try and minimise the lack of detail of minor items and the potential for variations that could be claimed under a standard construction contract. We've obviously allowed in the budget for an amount of contingencies associated with that, and then we'll actively manage that under the contract over its term. We can't expressly guarantee that they won't be latent conditions or other variations that may result in the contract, but obviously for our project management and monthly reporting, we're transparent with those as they go to council. And as you would recall, councillors, when we looked at Cedar Party Creek Bridge, we had a lot of risk associated with that. We tried to de-risk that project with the contractor, and the ultimate result was we had a project that was delivered within the budget and on time as a result of that. And that's through the application of fairly strict project management framework, which in our organisation, Water and Sewer probably have the greatest level of experience with that because they've been dealing with complex and difficult projects for quite some time, and that's part of what they do. So in that relation, this is a major milestone for us. It has taken a lot of work for us to get to this point where the tenders have been called. As you might have recognised from the report, the infrastructure itself was built in the 1930s. It's very closely approaching 100 years old, and it's definitely well past its use by date. It's served the community well, and it's time for us to be able to move on with the next era of good quality infrastructure for the Gloucester area.
Thank you. Councillor Beasley.
Further question to the Director. Would it be fair to say that the process itself that Council is required to go through could mean that there are cost increases over that period?
The only cost increases that would come in are those that are allowable under the contract. So there are some opportunities for rise and fall of prices, but they're fairly limited and controlled. The major cause of increased costs over the term of the contract period will be latent conditions or discrepancies between the various different design drawings, specification and contract documents, and ultimately if they result in a variation that must be approved under the contract. So they're, in terms of escalations, once we sign up to that, the price is fixed for the majority of things, and it's really only those things that are allowable under the contract that can be increased or that can be resulting in an increase in cost.
One more.
If you don't mind, Councillor Wilson. This question may be for the Director or possibly Acting Director of Corporate Services or for the General Manager. Funding is from Council's sewer fund, including future developer contributions. What is the likely percentage of the cost covered by the future contributions, and from what area of the local government area will these contributions be taken?
We take the exact answer to that on notice. What the process is that in our design, we haven't just designed for the existing population of the Gloucester area. It is we will have allowed an element of growth over the next 30 to 50 years associated with that, so that when we've designed a plant, it's right-sized for both efficiency but also having future capacity. What that means is that then the cost of the plant will go into the developer servicing plan for Gloucester, for that catchment zone only, and then future connections within that will pay for their respective proportion of the additional works that caters for that future growth. All of that's covered under Council's developing servicing plans, which were renewed, I think, about this time, or no, in June last year from memory. So we're probably not up to the stage where we renew that. However, we do infrequently renew that every sort of 5 years, which takes into account any additional changes to costs from what was budgeted compared to what was actually received. What that does do is it aimed at making sure that new development pays its fair share of the costs of major headworks construction of water and sewer items, as opposed to being subsidised by existing customers.
I'm going to go to Councillor Wilson next. He has a question, I think.
Super quick, through the GM to the Director. When's the expected completion date?
Is that the 2028 date?
I know it's working now.
Yeah, no, we're back.
Back. Yeah, that's the date that's in there, which I think is 2028.
So July 2028.
I did just to clarify with the Director, my question was about the future contributions, and I understand that that the Director is taking the question, the likely percentage of the cost on notice. The latter part of my question was about the area of the LGA where these contributions are taken from. It's taken from a certain area, is my understanding, or is that incorrect?
Under the developer servicing plan, each sewer plant and system has its catchment area, only those properties that are serviced by that area, and then council considers the overall pricing when the overall rate of developer contributions when we determine the developer servicing plan. So if you look in that plan, you'll see a schedule of rates for different areas, which is based around the sewer treatment systems and their respective catchment areas. So if a property is not serviced by sewer, it obviously wouldn't contribute towards the future capital costs. So it's only those properties within the service area.
Thank you. Anything else? I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? That is everybody. Thank you. Carried. 16.4. It's the minutes of the local Transport Forum held on the 4th of December 2025. I think that's got it. Move it, please. Thank you, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I just asked the Director to have a look at the wording of the recommendation just for as an education piece. The wording's a little clunky. But I do move that the minutes of the local Transport Forum meeting held on 4th of December 2025 be noted and the recommendations adopted.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Turnbull. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate the Director that we're now listing the items, because obviously the items are addressed in the attachment, which is publicly available. But we're now addressing the items in the financial resource implications. I would ask in future reports that they're actually listed in the discussion. You can have them in the finance as well, because there are financial. But the Bennett Place Foster no parking, for example, there's more that could be said in the discussion. But the items that we're approving is the Bennett Place Foster, the no parking area. The issue is at the end of the cul-de-sac, garbage trucks haven't been able to get in. And so there's a no parking going in there, but it's just for bin days. So residents can know the rest of the time they're fine to park there, but just the sign will say it'll say which day it is. It won't say bin days, but it's just appropriate for bin days to allow the garbage trucks to get through. The other one is Boomerang Drive in Blues Beach. Some traffic restrictions there with give way and no stopping and bus zone. The developer pays for that as part of the development. But I did have a question for the Director through the General Manager about the third one, which is Hedges Street, Harrington, the one way on Hedges Street from Pilot Street to, I think it's Coode Street. Initially, the approach was to take it eastbound. And I think Australia Post and Bottle Mart opposed it, but all others affected on that street did support eastbound, particularly the residents. And it's been revised to westbound, which Australia Post and Bottle Mart are happy with, but it appears that others aren't. So my question is, why was it not eastbound, and what's the current view of the residents?
The logic for that is both of those businesses have used that area to load and unload. And in going in the opposite to what we've recommended would mean that they would be parked on the opposite side of the road and have to unload across a trafficable lane. So the reason that it's been recommended the way that it is because that they will then unload on the same side as the business. Now, that's obviously not the preferred direction. We've previously looked at one-way direction in this street, and it didn't progress on the basis of the degree of different views in the community. Ultimately, either is adequate in terms of resolving the overall issue, which is that the street is narrow and it's very difficult for vehicles to pass on it. So neither of them are technically incorrect or unfeasible. It's simply around the logical, practical sides of loading and unloading for those commercial businesses. Hence the recommendation that's been through the committee and provided to council.
And I suppose if at some stage it's reviewed with some feedback, then it could be changed or revisited at some point, I assume.
It's no different to any other traffic measure that's put in that. If it does prove to be problematic, then it can be reviewed. However, it's probably no more or less problematic than the other direction, with exception of the loading and unloading for those businesses.
Sure. Well, I commend you, Director, and for your staff for not putting it in the too hard basket. As you say, it's previously been looked at and gone, we're not quite sure of the consensus, so we're not going to do anything. Always better to do something than nothing. So thank you for taking that decision.
One further thing I would add to that, just in terms of putting more detail in the report, we do put a comprehensive amount of information about the discussion in the minutes. And it hadn't been intended to sort of duplicate that within the body of the report, other than to be clear on what the financial implications were of the recommendations that have come through the forum for council. And that might be something that we need to workshop a bit more about, what detail council would like to see in the report, because I'd hate to duplicate the same text or a more summarised version of the text again within the council report, as well as the minutes.
If I could respond to that, Mayor, I completely agree with your approach, Director. All I'm asking for is dot points, Hedges Street, Harrington, one way, east to west, Bennett Place, Foster, no parking, only bin days, that sort of level of information. And as you say, the rest is in the attachment. However, a lot of people don't go and look at the attachment. So as long as they can get a sufficient high level, then they'll get what they need from that, and they can look at the attachments for more if they want it.
Thank you. Any further? Councillor Howard.
Yes, just following up Councillor Miller's comments to the Director about Hedges Street at Harrington, and noting the Director's comments that it's always open for review, depending on how things work out. Given the preference of the residents was the alternate direction, and essentially we've, for want of a better phrase, sided with the businesses here. Should those businesses vacate their premises, then I would ask that we resurvey the residents again to see if they still feel it should be going the other way, and let them have their head, for want of a better phrase.
Thank you. Anything else? No? I'll put the motion. All in favour? It's everybody. Thank you. It's carried. 16.5, Transport and Engineering Flood Recovery Update. The report provides an update on the AGRN 1212 Flood Recovery Program progress, challenges and actions still required to restore the transport network. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Beasley.
I move to point one that the contents of this report on the AGRN 1212 May 2025 Flood Transport Infrastructure Recovery Program be noted. Point two, that the non-conformances with the tendering provisions and panel contracts be noted, and improvement actions together with monitoring and compliance be implemented to reduce the risk of a reoccurrence.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Miller. Councillor Beasley.
I do have a few questions, and I'll ask three of them and then
Thank you.
throw it over to the floor. This is a question through the General Manager to the Acting Director of Corporate Services. Given that Council has spent approximately $43 million but only received $3 million in reimbursements, what is the current impact on our unrestricted cash position, and what contingency plans are in place if reimbursements are delayed further?
Through the General Manager, I'd probably refer you to page 100 of the attachments agenda, which actually has a table that indicates that in June, our internally restricted funds were sitting at 53 million, and in December they were 42 million. So it is having an impact. We are spending our own money. We're still got good liquidity, but it does have an impact, yes.
I would add to that, for the General Manager, that the period for immediate reconstruction works and emergency works completed or ended on the 31st of December. So we wouldn't expect any costs associated with those to have continued, other than our costs associated with administering and documenting and putting all the evidence together to substantiate the claims for reimbursement of those costs. So in reality, what we should see over the coming months is an increase in the amount of recovery of claims that have been lodged based on what goes in from that process. And in addition to that, as sort of is detailed in the report, there's 14 essential public asset restoration projects currently waiting endorsement to proceed, and immediately upon approval, 20% of the amount, the upper limit amount, is paid to council, which is over $11 million. So that would substantially assist with our cash flow when that is paid. And obviously then those projects would also continue to be eligible for progress payments as they go through the cycle towards completion. Keeping in mind that this is going to be a long road for council. There's over $200 million in total of works required on our road network from current estimates and just what we have in the program at the moment. And obviously the importance of us monitoring and keeping track of that for that very reason, to make sure that it goes out. But essentially, there's not the period for the immediate expenditure without the reimbursement directly happening at the same time proportionally has passed, and we've got until the 31st of March to make sure that all those claims for the monies that were expended early on in the process have been issued, and we're on track at the moment to make sure that all those claims are submitted.
Which partially answers my next question, which is how are we managing the cash flow gap? So this is a question, of course, through the General Manager to the Acting Director of Corporate Services. How are we managing the cash flow gap, and are we considering short-term borrowing or internal fund transfers to maintain operations?
So there's a combination there. As I said before, we are using some internally restricted funds, and we are also, as investments mature, we are using some of those funds. So we're not recalling investments for the purposes of it, but we are, as investments mature, become available in the bank account, we then make a decision whether to reinvest those immediately or hold on to it for liquidity purposes. So it's been quite well managed. It's less than ideal because we are spending our own funds, and that has an impact clearly, but it's not at any level that would concern us at the moment.
That's right. Someone else had some questions. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll speak to it in a moment. I wanted to start with a question to the Director through the General Manager. The report talks about the procurement exceedances, and the report actually explains them very well. But just for transparency, to address it in the meeting, could the Director just go through what the procurement exceedances were, why they happened, what we've learnt, and the improvement measures?
So the exceedance originated out of non-compliance in two ways, and in part having the two different ways was actually part of the reason why they existed, because there was confusion between the application of what is some legislative provisions versus contract provisions. So in the legislation on the declaration of event, the legislation allows for procurement directly without calling open tenders, which is an advertised open public process, for up to $500,000. And anything less than that can be directly appointed without going through an open tendering process. Council also has its own purchasing policies and procedures, and inside that we have a certificate of exemption, which allows officers an opportunity to, in certain circumstances, to vary our own purchasing policy, not the legislation, but our own purchasing policy. And then the third element of the complexity of it is around our minor and major civil works contract, which is panel contract, which was mentioned earlier in this meeting. And the provision of that works on the basis that you actually seek competitive quotes from those people on the panel. So in the root cause analysis of our exceedances is our staff had, in some instances, believed that the works would be less than $500,000, so therefore be covered by the legislative general exemption and not require open tendering. And then on that basis, they didn't seek competitive quotations from panellists under the minor and major civil works basis, feeling that that could, if it did go over, it could be covered by our certificates of exemption, which it can't be covered by. So had we sought competitive quotes in a short time frame, responding to the flood at the time, we'd be compliant with the contract and it wouldn't be an exceedance. Inversely, had we advertised for open tenders for those works and went through an open tendering process, it would also be compliant once it went past 500,000. Now, the estimates around some of the projects were reasonable that they have exceeded it for reasons that couldn't be foreseen at the time, and the decision was made to continue on the basis rather than stopping and calling open quotations on the basis there was already plant and equipment machinery mobilised there, and the time delay that it would take to actually go for a tendering process would just be frustrating and probably quite offensive to those property owners that were restricted of access to their properties. So in the desire to get the work done and get people safely back into and out of their properties, council proceeded that way. And it was when the final payments came for approval that the discrepancy was identified and hence reported to the General Manager and now publicly reported to council to aid in the transparency of that. Also provides an opportunity for learnings, and in particular, like most post-event debriefings, this will be an element that we look at and potentially incorporate into our future minor and major civil works panels so that we can stand up emergency arrangements that are compliant, that help our staff to do the right thing in a really fast way that services the community in the best. It's important to note that the exceedances don't result in any net impact to council in that the works are all fully funded under the natural disaster recovery arrangements. Value for money has been achieved because the rates are the same as described in our minor and major civil works panels. So there hasn't been any profiteering or gouging from that perspective. And in reality, what we saw was a significant amount of compliments from the community, particularly at some of those works, because of the way that our contractors and our staff are able to virtually dig their way into and out of trouble and get people back into and out of their properties.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I'll speak to it now, Mayor, if I may. Thank you for that answer, and I think it was an excellent approach. Works were undertaken in good faith to protect public safety and so that communities could be connected. It would have, as the Director says, not in so many words, but it would have been absurd for a dozer to stop work because we have to go through a tender process and wait for a month for a tender to plough through. The community wouldn't have accepted that. So I think the team did the right thing, but a red tape line was crossed, and that's been reported here. The learnings have been reported, and you've taken measures to see that it doesn't happen again. But to err on the side of helping the community, I think, is the right error to make. In terms of this report and the flood recovery update, there's been an extraordinary amount of work, and it's good for the community to reflect on what has been done. I know we do reflect, as to an extent we should, on what hasn't been done yet, and there is still a lot of work to be done. But we should take a moment to reflect on what has been done, which is $28.6 million worth of emergency works completed, fixing about 12,000 defects across almost 2,000 kilometres of road. And it's an extraordinary amount of work in a short period of time. $13.5 million immediate rectification works, 21 landslips with all the challenges that they bring, 40 damaged bridges and culverts and restoration of roads. And the 15 essential public asset rectification works submitted, so it's $51 million of what we think will be about $184 million. And so we're waiting for approval on those, but we're not twiddling our thumbs in the meantime. Council is undertaking work and planning for 21 major bridge repairs and replacements, 50 additional slip repairs, 22 additional sealed and unsealed roadworks while we wait for those approvals to come through. So it has been an extraordinary amount of work. And we know, we're not even halfway up the hill yet. There's still a lot more to go. But, we do need to reflect on the successes as well, that a lot has been done. It is disappointing, as has been alluded to earlier. Council spent $43 million as of the time of this report. That figure is now, larger. And we've received $3 million of reimbursement from the state government. So it is very disappointing that once again, the state government is using council as a bank, and that council funds, we're lucky that we had those unrestricted funds available. A few years ago, I'm not sure that would have been the case. And not all councils do have those unrestricted funds available, so they would have to stop work at this point. So having spent, ratepayers' council funds and waiting for the state government to reimburse at a phenomenally slow rate is very, very disappointing. But that aside, congratulations to the team on the significant amount of work that's been carried out to date.
I will just do one update. We did have, since the writing of the report, we've received a further $3.1 million in as late as, I think, late last Friday afternoon.
So we're only out of pocket $37 million now.
Correct.
Thank you, state government.
It was 100% improvement on what we'd previously been paid.
Yes, please.
So apart from reporting today in a transparent way the exceedance on the procurement thresholds, I've also informed the LWG of those exceedances as well.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the General Manager to the Director, I agree with Councillor Miller's sentiment. Amazing amount of work. I do see the 43 million spent, but total cost estimate was 226, so about 20% through in terms of spend. So there's a long haul ahead of us, as you've said. This might be a good opportunity, Director, to update the council and the public on Tyri Bridge and Bight Bridge. I can see there's an estimate here in the table on the report for Bight Bridge, but have you got an update that might have the public?
We do. We'll shortly be issuing information out to the community and also via our media contacts around Tyri Bridge at the end of March and April. We'll be commencing a temporary crossing there, reinstating that by around June to allow vehicles and box trailers. It will be load limited, so it'll be limited to vehicles and box trailers being able to cross that area, and that will be hopefully for the duration of until there's a new crossing in place. However, the difficulty we have at that at the moment is there's still a lot of design unknowns around the future replacement bridge, and I can't absolutely be certain that during construction it would be available to be able to be accessed or be able to remain in position. We just have to figure that out yet, but at least we'll have some sort of temporary interim option until we've got construction well and truly underway for a replacement of that bridge. The Bight Bridge, we're still working on that timeframe. As you can see, it is an EPAR that's been submitted for approval. It's been there for quite some time now. Keeping in mind it's the Christmas holiday break has been between when it was submitted and now. We're hoping that we do get something back on that, but nonetheless, we are working on the investigations towards the detailed design of what that replacement will look like. And just under the progress to date, since we've last reported it to council, we've probably shaved about a year off the anticipated recovery timeframe, simply out of the fact that we haven't had to go and prove the existing structure is inadequate, which would be difficult, timely and costly. And we're able to proceed straight away on a replacement timeframe, which has allowed us to shorten the timeframe considerably.
Okay, so Bight around June. Oh, sorry, not Bight. That's really under pressure.
The temporary for Tyri around June.
And
Bight's probably a year shorter than what we'd previously advised, but we'll come back to council and report once we've got something firmer around that.
Okay.
Sorry, if I could just note, we've identified to Art Reconstruction Authority from the outset as far as priorities. Whilst everything's a priority, the Bight and Tyri at the top of the list of those large projects.
Okay. And money helps. Thank you, Director. Now, I don't know which director this needs to go to. We looking at the previous reports. In September, we reported we claimed 8 million, and then in November, 13 million, but in February, 4 million. It kind of bounces. Why does it bounce?
It does bounce a bit on the claim. So the earlier amount, which was the larger amount, I made an earlier claim directly to RA. There was an issue with the processing of the system. It was not really up and running as it ought to be. So that's now been taken out, and that's the reason for.
Right. So those claims are still in the pipeline then?
Yeah, they'll still be made and they'll still be claimed.
Yeah.
It's the definition of what is a claim and when is a claim made.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything else on this? Councillor Beasley?
One further question. I tentatively asked this because of the huge backlog that we have to the director through the general manager. How are we ensuring that rebuilt assets are more resilient to future flood events?
We can't really ensure that they're any more resilient to it unless we've been successful in engaging in a betterment process under what's been approved. Largely, the natural disaster recovery arrangements are about like-for-like restoration or restoration to pre-flood condition or function. Now, in saying that, there's when you're restoring function, obviously that's a little bit broader scope than purely the condition, but betterment is obviously an area that we would like to achieve, but at times it won't be something that we can get approved to be funded. Notwithstanding that, it doesn't mean that council can't, under its funding programs, look at how we can do additional works for betterment. But largely the natural disaster requirements, natural disaster recovery funding arrangements don't allow expressly for betterment unless the case is approved as part of an application that we put in.
If I could add to that through the Mayor, as previously indicated, we use a piece of software called Asset AI, which is no other council that was declared has that technology, so cameras on garbage trucks. So whilst it may not be betterment, it allows us the capability of identifying all the damage as a result of the flood, which we couldn't have done previously. So it results in a large repair bill, but we wouldn't have a large repair bill but for the technology that we do use.
Nothing else? I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's everybody. Motion's carried. Moving to corporate services papers, 17.1. This is the Floodplain Management Advisory Committee. The report presents the Floodplain Management Advisory Committee meeting notes from 2 December 2025, along with presenting a revised terms of reference to council and seeks additional membership to the committee. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Wilson. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I think there's some slight changes to the wording. If we could get that up.
Yeah, it's item 3. Change to 4.
Yeah, I think we're also going to change the name from committee to advisory panel. Reference panel. Reference panel.
To reference group to align with our reference group structure. Still an advisory committee, just changing the name. Nothing else.
So do we make that a separate point? Do we have to fill up? Do we have to change it formally as a separate point?
Yep, it's in dot point 2 of what's on the screen there. It's actually not a big deal, but it just would mean it aligns with our reference group structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll need, councillors will need a...
Could you read out the motion?
Excluding the point to change the name?
Including.
Oh, okay.
It hasn't got through the minutes.
Right. That the Floodplain Management Advisory Committee be renamed to the Flood Management Advisory Panel. The Flood Management Advisory Panel meeting, or I don't know what tense do I use? Advisory Committee meeting notes from the 2nd of December 25 meeting are noted. That the updated Flood Management Advisory Panel terms of reference are endorsed, Council seeks nominations from the community to fill 4 positions on the Flood Management Advisory Panel with specific focus from the southern part of the region of Wallace Lake, Wollamba River Flood, Wollamba River Flood Risk Management Study and Plains. Plans, geez.
Plans.
Have I helped at all?
Yeah, that's all right. Thanks for that. We'll get it up on the screen. Yes, I do realise that. Not at the moment, Alan. I'm assuming you'll second it.
I'll second it with a suggested word change.
Yeah, well, we'll wait for it to come up on the screen.
Just give us a moment, councillors.
Yeah, probably more.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to send the amended wording to the minute takers. My bad. It's coming up on the screen now.
Okay, so we've got the suggested words here. Alan, you want to have a comment on that, and you're seconding it?
I'm happy to second in the form that is printed, which is different to what Councillor Wilson actually said verbally. If he's happy to take that on board, noting that the changes is actually termed the reference group rather than advisory committee.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, there's a bit of confusion here. All right, so Councillor Wilson, would you like to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Councillor Tickle.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will. I just need to make it clear that unlike the former Section 355 committees, this particular committee has no delegation from council to actually impose a position that creates an operational direction to council. So calling it the reference group is more appropriate. I did receive correspondence from a constituent today suggesting that we all, instead of meeting notes, we should have resolutions. And the very fact that this is the role of this committee is to add value and give information that the staff can make use of, calling a reference group is more appropriate. And also that points to not having actual resolutions, but noting the applicable conversations that will require action of council. How it actually operates in as far as carrying out the suggestions from this committee is that when a matter is operational, those ideas will be taken on board and staff will carry it out as they normally would do as an operational function. Where something needs a resolution of council, there will be a recommendation coming from this committee, a report coming to council for council to resolve. And that's how this particular committee operates. What we have been at pains to aim to do this over this term, we don't want this committee to be perfunctory where it's a rubber stamp where things are brought forward to this committee to consult, maybe add some value, agree, rubber stamp, let's move on. What we've agreed to do is certainly carry out the terms of reference that's set out for us, but to be partnering with the likes of the SCS and other agencies that we can identify during discussions if a matter comes up where there needs to be advocacy for our community or through the the various agencies, then we do so. And that would be the role of Councillor Wilson and myself to bring that to council and seek advocacy by way of notice of motion or resolution or request and report. So we're certainly aiming to, at the end of our term, to actually achieve something that's going to make a difference to our community. Some of the highlights that have come out through our various meetings, there's issues concerning the heights of various depth gauges in the area, for example. There needs to be work done on that. There's issues with some failing gauges up the river where we need to have accurate information filtering down to the BOM and to those downstream. We recognise that we've got to get a warning system that is effective. We need something efficient where the community will take notice when a warning comes out that they need to act. But one of the big things that has come out of our recent discussions is that the flood modelling that we have for this council is very accurate. When we look at the levels of the flood readings at the various points, when that was extrapolated and fed into the flood modelling software, the result was so very close to accuracy when it came to what actually happened on the ground. So when we start looking at predictability, the software we have has proven to be quite accurate and showed what the effects were going to be at Oxley Island, for example, and downstream. So really, some of the big messages come out of the 2025 floods discussions and studies since that the message needs to get out, that the community needs to take heed when a warning comes out. They need to act early, not rest on their laurels that, we're okay the previous flood. And that certainly has been the undoing for many in 2025. But the role of the floodplain reference group goes beyond looking at issues around the 2025 flood, but also comes down to oversight, giving input to key flood management plans that cover the whole of the Mid-Coast area. But certainly it will always be a work in progress how we do things better. But certainly the discussions we have had at this committee level highlight the fact that we need to get other people on the committee that can add value to cover some of the areas that we haven't got people on the ground. And we need to listen to our community from the bottom up so that we get the best outcome coming up to the top. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Beasley.
Having been made aware of the actions that have taken place after the floods in Lismore and the councils of, I think it's Richmond River Valley, Byron Shire Council and Ballina. In particular, Lismore has taken a very much a whole of the area approach. They've been assisted with CSIRO working with them. I think it's a multi-million-dollar project that is looking at treating the whole area, not just specifically the urban areas, to try and overcome the problem. The modelling, as much as one trusts it, of course, until the event, is indicating that by using swales, retention and detention ponds, they'll be able to drop the level at Lismore by a metre. That's quite a considerable amount. The cost, I don't know. The final report and recommendations from the CSIRO won't be available for some time yet, but I'm bringing this up, wondering whether this could be something that the committee panel, sorry, I've missed it. What are you called now? Sorry. The reference thingy, yes, might look at. It's an approach that would seem, from the science that's taken place in Lismore, to have a very large effect, positive effect, and it's not an easy thing to do, I shouldn't think. It would require the whole of council to get involved in assisting, taking on the decisions that are made by, or the recommendations that are made to council, and possibly looking at a similar approach for this area in the future.
Can I just make the comment there, and I'm not sure I'm not familiar with the modelling you're talking about, but I am aware that in that Northern Rivers region, including Lismore and all those other councils around there, there's been considerable amount of money made available by the state government for adaptation planning. And this council's been trying to get their hands on some of that money too, but we've been told that because the Manning River doesn't impact on other councils that we're not eligible for it. So we're going to try and do something through the Hunter JO because the Hunter JO is on the list for some work. But it just points to the fact that it's very, where multiple council areas are affected, money is being made available. So I'm jealous. I'm jealous. Yeah. Okay.
Is council question to anyone up there, the general manager, through the mayor? So is council actively involved in pursuing?
So there's a program which initiated late last year. The benefit of being part of the Hunter Joint Organisation allows government to provide funding to a group of councils. So through the Hunter JO was given a grant to do almost like disaster adaptation plans, but it works best in the state's view when you cover multiple areas. Now that doesn't mean that the Manning of itself shouldn't be included, because we say it should be included because the Manning covers, vast amount of different distance, and that ought to be covered. So there is funding available. We're part of those discussions, and there will be instances where there will be cross-council collaboration and initiatives that would apply to us, and there will be others that won't apply to us because it goes down. It's not only the Hunter councils, it includes Central Coast Council as well. So it's a pretty big area. But being part of the JO allows us to be part of those conversations.
Through the mayor, the general manager, does that mean that, or potentially mean that those councils inside the Hunter JO that are adjacent and are flooded might be treated more positively than us?
To see how the plan's in a very early stage. I've been involved in one Teams meeting with all the relevant councils very, very early on. So hard to say. Once I've got information on the development of it and the benefits to us, I'll certainly provide that to council. But it's too early to say. All I would say, it is an opportunity for us to be involved and get some potential funding for something that will help the region.
We'll be pushing hard. Thank you. Anything else on this item? Like to move on? So I need to note that Councillor Howard's not in the room. I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? That is everybody present. Moving to 17.2, which is the 2024-25 financial statement submissions. The report presents submissions received from members of the public in respect of the 24-25 financial statements to councillors for its information. Mover, please. Councillor Miller.
I move that the submissions be noted.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Turnbull. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the two people who sent submissions, and answers were provided to both of those submissions. There was nothing material that required changes on the financial statement. But I will take the opportunity to note that the Audit Office have tabled their report to State Parliament regarding the financial statements, which are audited by the New South Wales Audit Office. And those financial statements are then presented through the Audit Office to State Parliament, and talks about how audits went across the local government area, including this one with our financial statements. And the report from the Audit Office does make another strong case for financial sustainability review across the local government sector. It identifies many issues that are sector-wide. So a lot of the issues that we talk about here at Council, we need to know through reports like this and through your work, Mayor, with Local Government New South Wales and others, that this is a sector-wide issue. 17 councils reported operating losses. 19 had insufficient cash to cover 3 months of general expenses. Neither of those was Mid Coast Council. And the report says it highlights the ongoing liquidity challenges for the sector, particularly for rural and regional councils. So we're not alone. 11 councils had heightened financial sustainability risk, not Mid Coast Council. 14 councils required an extension to the audit. 3 audits are still ongoing, whereas Mid Coast Council's draft audit was adopted as the final audit. 91 councils submitted more than one draft version of the financial statements. 1 council needed to submit more than 10 versions. And again, Mid Coast Council was one of 34 that only required the single draft. Most cash and investments held by councils, all councils, are externally restricted, and that is something we often hear at Mid Coast Council. You're holding all this money, you should spend it. Yes, those are externally restricted funds. And so most across all councils, most of the cash they have are externally restricted and can only be used for specific purposes. But metro councils, you'll see in the report, have about double the unrestricted cash of regional councils. So metro councils have about twice as much cash that they can use for their own purposes as opposed to regional councils, and that must be a nice position to be in. So it talks again about the divide between metro councils and their ability to raise money through things like parking fees and leasing out office space, and the challenges that rural and regional councils have. The other thing that I think we should be proud of is 41% of major projects across all councils were over budget. That's not the bit to be proud of. And 48% were delayed by more than 6 months. But Cedar Party Bridge, Mid Coast Council's major project, was listed in the report tabled to government as one of the few major projects delivered on time and on budget.
Thank you. Yes, it was a good outcome. Anything else on this item? No. I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? That's everybody present?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
17.3.
17.3 is the December 2025 quarterly budget review. The report presents the review statements for the period period to 31 December 2025 for consideration as required by clause 2031 of the Local Government General Regulation 2021. Move it, please. Councillor Irving.
I move that the quarterly budget review statement for the period of 31st of December 2025 be noted and the budget variations proposed, including transfers to and from reserves, be adopted.
Thank you. Councillor Howard's return. Seconder, please. Councillor Beasley. Councillor Irving. Councillor Beasley.
I have a considerable number of questions that I think everyone at the top table are aware of now. We agreed this morning at the council meeting to pass questions on to General Manager and directors beforehand. My compilation was done at about sunrise this morning, so I could have given you a little bit longer, but however, it was very much a late-minute exercise. So I'll, as previously, I'll ask a few questions and then leave it to others for a while. So my first question, in fact, I guess most of these questions will be through the General Manager to the Acting Director of Corporate Services. Looking at the General Fund on page 3, which will be in the attachments, that will be page 95 of the attachments. The other expenses line is forecast to be $4.9 million or 36% over the original budget. This is the largest proportional increase in the entire statement. Can you provide the detail of what constitutes this other expenses overrun and what specific management actions being taken to control this item for the remainder of the year and to prevent a recurrence in next year's budget?
So, Councillor, I will take that question on notice. I will say that I've had very little time to delve into that. It's quite complex, so I will take it on notice and allow our Finance Manager to assist me to prepare that. I will note that I did get a very quick comment from our finance manager that it relates to the landfill remediation expenditure, which is on page 60 of the report. So it's around that. But beyond that, I'll need to take it on notice and unpack the data for you, and hopefully try to report that back to the 25th of February meeting, depending on how complex that is. If not, it'll be the following meeting.
A couple more. And
Might I continue? On page 3, there are large income increases from grants and contributions up 22.1% and user charges and fees up 16.7%. Can you provide more specific information regarding both the sources and the reasons for the increase to the Acting Director?
Yep. Again, I will need to take that on notice. That'll take some data unpacking and some scenarios. So I will bring that back to the next meeting.
And I will give you more time next time, Acting Director. Again, on page 3, the General Fund user charges forecast of $26.2 million requires Council to collect $11.5 million. In the second half of the year, this implies a monthly collection rate 21% lower than our exceptional first half performance, yet the annual total is still 48% higher than last year. So there's an unusual difference between the two in my mind. Can you explain the reason for the second half slowdown after a record first half, and can you confirm what proportion of the year-to-date $14.65 million is from one-off items versus sustainable recurring income?
So I'm not going to say ditto, but I am going to take that on notice for exactly the same reasons and hopefully bring that back to you by the 25th of Feb meeting.
Good.
thank you.
We'll just have to check the recording so we got that question right as well, because. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you've got to be careful. I'm aware that other councillors had some questions. Who wants to go next? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask 2 questions, and then I will have a couple of others, but we'll start with 2 and share it around because sharing is caring, as Councillor Beasley has said. The main question is to the General Manager, and it's to do with the issue of receiving fine income from Revenue New South Wales. The report notes that there are significant delays in receiving fine income, and it's had a $290,000 budget impact. My question is that new? Has Revenue New South Wales changed something? And what's driving that delay, and what can we do about it?
No, it comes in on a monthly? Yeah, it comes in on a monthly basis.
Comes in as a block each month, so they batch up their payments. The issue is bigger this year than it has been in previous years because there's been an increase in fines issued. So the amount is a larger amount. There is always a delay with getting the funding from Revenue New South Wales because whilst we may issue the fine or infringements, or a court may as well, we are not the collector of those fines. That is Revenue New South Wales. They give 21 days for people to pay those fines. They then send a reminder if they haven't. They then pursue them. They may enter into payment agreements. So we are a little bit a passenger in when that revenue comes through. And then there's a further delay because they batch them into 1 month lumps. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Sort of. Well, when I read the report, it seems more alarming than what you're saying, because it is saying there's an evolving issue with receipt about fine income. It's saying that there's no guarantee the whole amount will be received in the future, which is what you have alluded to. And the report does say there's a risk to council's operations as resourcing has been provided based on actual receipt. So certainly what the report is implying is there's something new or some new delay. You're saying it's sort of business as usual, but we're putting out more fines, so therefore the quantum is larger.
Yeah, that's correct. And we expect to receive essentially all of the income. We may not receive it in the time frame we would like, and we may even receive some of it in an alternate financial year as those fines get paid. So we are budgeting to receive all of it at some point. May not be in the same financial year, but we are largely a passenger as to whether Revenue South Wales enter into payment agreements where someone might pay, I don't know, $20 a month or something like that, and then that gets forwarded through to us, and we have no control over that.
All right. What did alarm me was the $290,000 budget impact, and I suppose that's something we just need to take a watching brief on how that does. But I'm reassured when you're saying it's not because of any change that New South Wales has done. So I'll get off my high horse on that one and not bash state government this time. My second question was about the reallocating funds from Blackhead Skate Park to the Albert Street amenities. The question is, those funds that were reallocated, were they grant funds or were they the Section 711 funds? I have an assumption of what they were, but we should clarify it. My other question is, are we sure there are no further expenditure on the skate parks of defects, levelling the uneven ground around it, shaded seating? Because my concern is, yes, we do have a budget hole for the Albert Street amenities. I'm not sure that moving money from the Blackhead Skate Park is the best way to fill that hole.
So I'll start, and then we maybe hand over to the Executive Manager of Public Spaces if he knows about the specifics of the project. But the Blackhead Skate Park came in $35,000 under budget. The grant funding agreement allows us to move grant funding between those projects if they come out of the same funding body at the same funding round. That's written into the grant agreements. However, staff exercising additional due diligence did check with the funding body that it was permissible, and they got written confirmation that that is the case. No Section 11 funds are moving, so there were contributions from Section 11 funds for the skate park, and there were also grant funds. It's only the grant funding that's moving. So, and I'm not really aware of the specifics of the skate park project, so that might hand over.
Thank you. Yeah, through the General Manager, we had, in our opinion, the skate park project is finished. If there are defects, the responsibility will be on the contractor to rectify those. We don't have any plans to undertake further embellishment in the reserve at this point in time, though we are considering future embellishments as part of the development of developer contributions plans and future budget cycles.
Thank you. Do you have any further questions?
I did have further questions, but I'm happy to take turns. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, someone else? Councillor Wilson?
Yes,
and
can I
then
have a turn, please?
Sorry, yeah, Councillor Wilson, then Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, Mayor. Back to the Acting Director of Corporate Services through the General Manager. Just on Councillor Miller's point in terms of receipt of fee income, I noticed I think it was 490,000 over this financial year. Do we have any outstanding due from previous years?
I'd probably have to take that on notice because I haven't gone into that level of detail. We can certainly take that on notice and provide that information.
Okay.
There is a little bit of disparity between the fines we issue and the monies that come through. There's not a direct reconciliation process, so we don't reconcile those every single time they come through. However, we can go into the system and have a look at what fines have been paid and haven't been paid. So it is a body of work if we were going to reconcile every payment that comes through, given that we don't take the payment. So, but I can ask whether we can get that information and bring it back.
It probably leads on, thank you, Acting Director. It probably leads on to a bigger point, and this might come out in future reporting, and that's how we track debtors on our balance sheet as a current asset. So whether it's RA or it's Revenue New South Wales or it's people late on their rates, we should be able to see that asset on our balance sheet, because ultimately that should fall due and can get converted into cash. So I couldn't really find that in this report. I understand the report is being written under new guidelines, which is fine. But I also acknowledge that there might be reporting coming out through the report review that would be able to display that. And it'd be good to know that, because we do see cash being spent. We're spending it to do repairs, and that's ultimately going to get paid back, but it just disappears, and we've got to record it somewhere. So that would be good to see. So when it comes to the flood repairs, do we treat that as a CapEx spend? So we're going to fix up an asset, whether it's a road or a bridge that's grant funded. You're investing in infrastructure. It'll be a CapEx spend, I would say. Is that fair?
Yeah, it would, because you're actually renewing your asset in a lot of cases, or certainly upgrading it.
And
There'd be some components that might be operational in nature, but by and large, the majority of it will have some sort of capitalisation process associated with restoring the asset to its pre-existing condition or the function.
So you depreciate it a fair bit and bump it back up.
Yeah, you'll see that come through next year's, and even potentially last year's. There was an element of it might be impairment on assets, so you'll see an impairment adjustment that's probably equal to the capitalisation that's coming. Keeping in mind that in some cases, like in the case of the Bite Bridge, it's very hard to replace effectively you're going to lose some of the asset value that was in the old bridge because you're going to replace it with a complete bridge because you can't just repair what's there.
Yeah.
You're still providing a brand new asset.
Yeah. So it's important we see cash being spent on where it goes to. The last one I had, I noticed in the commentary, I think it was in the sewer fund, so it might be for you, Director of Infrastructure and Engineering, $13.1 million of works removed from the current program. It will be incurred in the future. I'm assuming that's Gloucester sewage treatment plants. It doesn't really say.
There is an element of that where it's timing of cash flow, not necessarily the work, but it's when we start a project, we'll have an optimistic time frame on the cash flow. In other words, what we're trying to do is make sure that we've got the cash available to pay the claims if they do fall due on the best possible time frame. Admittedly, what happens in a large percentage is that there's some lag between when we thought the project might get started and the claims would come in for payment and when it actually does. Like, for instance, in relation to Gloucester, we had previously planned to complete the tendering back and have an award of contract back in December. It's now February. We've just awarded the contract today, and therefore you'll have a commensurate delay in the claims coming through. Notwithstanding that, there's some impact from the reprioritisation of our delivery resources following the floods, and in particular the project delivery team that mobilised quickly to complete the Wingham trunk main replacement. And that has had a flow-on impact to some of the areas. So whilst we might see a reduction in our capital program, we've also got to remember we expended a further bit over $7 million on replacing the Wingham main, and there's several other months of disruption to our capital program, particularly around assets like Wingham Sewer Treatment Works, where we completely rebuilt effectively all the electrical and mechanical components of that to get it back up and running in record time frame. So unfortunately, that comes with an area there. There is we have been working to fill the resource gap anyway, because there's an underlying deficiency there. Our programs historically, years ago, were $20 million in capital. They've been $40 million for a few years now. In the future, they'll project up as renewals ramp up to hit our targets of $60 or $70 million. And we've previously done work to increase both our internal and external resources, hence the earlier report in the council around the panel for engineering around our water and sewer infrastructure, making sure that we can plan projects, design them, and prepare them ready to be constructed or executed in a timely manner. So all of those things coming together, and you'll see, in the future, we will be doing a lot more work. We'll still have that struggle with how we time and plan the cash flow of those works, but we are going to get through a lot more things in the future.
And the resources, of course. Thank
Absolutely. All of that is reported on a monthly basis as well. So what you will see, consistent with the quarterly budget review and the changes to the budget, are also reflected in the project reporting status that comes through in the monthly reports.
And Councillor Wilson, just in reference to your first question, we recognise revenue slightly differently depending on the scenario. So where we levy an invoice through debtors or rates, we recognise the income at that point when it's raised. But where we're not the person who raises the invoice, in this case where the Revenue New South Wales is involved, we recognise the income once it arrives in our bank account. So they're treated slightly differently. And we're not permitted to raise invoices to state revenue for that purpose.
Thank you. Can we move to Councillor Tickle? You had some questions?
Can I just add to that last one?
Just hold on a second.
If you refer to a report, there's 2 pages of adjustments in the water and sewer capital program. So there are quite a few increases in budget. So in response to the projects where we haven't moved as fast as what we thought they were, there's some areas where we were ready to proceed with works, and we've actually brought budget forward to continue with those works, which partially offsets some of the delays that we've experienced. And in particular, that's been effective in some of our renewals programs, helping us to get through some of the backlog of work that we've got to do, whilst we haven't seen the same the progress in the major projects. So there has been some good things to note in that report, as well as the shifts from some of those major capital programs, which they partly offset each other.
Thank you. Councillor Tickle.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Question to the General Manager, or to whom he may direct it for a response. It's also in relation to the appropriation of the funds from the Blackhead Skate Parks, as referenced on page 59 of the report. First of all, clarification on the amount. The report reads 7966. I'm assuming there's an extra 6 by mistake. I just want to clarify that. I did hear the response to Councillor Miller, which I thank you for that response. However, the questions I do have, my understanding is that the grant application, that the Skate Park Committee had a lot to do with that grant application, either directly or in liaison with Council. And they had a lot of communication with the state member for Mile Lakes, Tanya Thompson, on this as well. So the first part of the question is, has the proposal to transfer that money been discussed with the Skate Park Committee and directly with Tanya Thompson?
I could defer to the exec manager, but the answer would be no.
Okay.
It would have been the previous member anyway. It was at the time of Mr. Bromhead.
Right. Okay. The other part of the question is that, notwithstanding that the skate park has been completed, it's been flagged by a community group and also the former director of Liberal Communities that there was a school of thought that to look at having playground equipment added to that, into that precinct. There's also been pointed out repeatedly by members of the public that the need to have toilets in that vicinity as well. Had any thought been given to using that as seed funding for scoping out that type of works?
Not for that amount, not that amount of funding as seed funding for those other works, but I will defer to the exec manager who has some comments on public recreation facilities and potential toilet facilities.
Yep, through the General Manager. No thought hadn't been given to using that as seed funding. The funding was specifically for the provision of the skate park, which we've delivered on. Council has developed a number of recreational planning documents that deal with, so we have a place-based strategy, we have a public toilets in parks strategy that considers what we need to provide for our communities across the Mid-Coast region. It did take into account provision of public amenities in Hallidays Point, and there was an action in there around seeking support to use the facility in the shopping centre. That's been followed up and wasn't supported, and we're currently considering other options. We need to be careful that we're not providing more facilities than we need, I guess, from a financial sustainability point of view. We've got a playground considerably close to Wally Breckenridge Park, pretty much about 300 or 400 metres away, along with a public toilet there as well. So rather than duplicating assets that are approximately closer than they need to be to meet community needs, we could consider potentially relocating those assets at the end of useful life. Again, financial sustainability is a really important subset to those strategic plans that we've developed in consultation with our community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thank you. I had some other questions, but just following up Councillor Tickle's question to the Executive Manager through the General Manager. The funding for the skate park can, as you said in the previous answer, can be moved to something else in the same funding round. Have all the works for which the funding was given been completed? In a funding, you have to say, we will do this, 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 and this. Has all of that been done? And would the funding allow that money to be used for other supplementary works in the same area, or was your only option to move it to the other funded project?
Through the General Manager, it would need to be explicitly included in the funding application, which talked about the skate park. It didn't talk about providing public amenities and the like. So it's possible we could have done minor ancillary works like landscape improvements. They weren't necessary at this point in time. We're giving the facility an opportunity to bed in. There was considerable landscaping undertaken at the time of construction, and a lot of that's been trampled through the extensive amount of use that facility's already received.
Thank you. It's good to see it being used. I had two other questions that I'm happy to move on to, if it's okay, Mayor. I can come
Yes,
back.
we need to get back to Councillor Beasley.
As I said,
at
happy
some
to share.
stage. Do you want to have some more, Councillor Beasley?
Yes, indeed. And actually, Councillor Miller's first question has jogged my memory. Someone did say to me that in regard to the general fund user charges, there may well be quite a number of people who pay their rates for the whole year. And this could be a reason why we received this supposed windfall in the first 6 months. So that's just an aside. This is a very different meeting now, isn't it, with this new code of meeting practice? It's somewhat more sombre. Anyway, I think my fourth question has been adequately answered by directors and by other councillors' questions. So could I ask, and this is about water and sewer, so I guess I should direct it to the General Manager, to the Director of Structure and Engineering Services, but possibly also to the Acting, this is such a mouthful, Director of Corporate Services. Both the water and sewer funds are projecting results significantly worse than budgeted, with the water fund now in a substantial deficit. What are the reasons for their underperformance? What steps are being taken to return them to a break-even position? And what implications does this have for future user charges?
Through the General Manager, I think what you're referring to is the projected cash positions of both of those funds, which is reflective of the significant capital works programs that they're undertaking at the moment. What that means is that the total value of capital works being completed in this financial year exceeds the total income of the funds, either fund respectively in this year, and therefore you're seeing a depletion or a deficit position. It doesn't reflect upon the operations or the performance of either funds. In fact, the report itself also details significant surpluses that are ongoing and operating for total income versus total costs when you're not looking from a capital perspective. It's simply the short-term response to the procurement of additional capital works, where we're either funding it from reserves or funding it through loan borrowings because the total cost exceeds the income that we'll have in any 1 year. So simply put, in an ordinary residential perspective, we're spending more than what we earned this year on buying assets that will serve our function and serve our business going forward, and are replacing, augmenting and improving those things. And what will happen over the time is, in future years, we won't have that position, and we'll then replace and replenish the cash positions as we save up. So it's that cycle of saving up and expending, then saving up and expending.
The Director's just mentioned reserves, which brings me to the next question, page 9 on developer contributions. This will be a question to the Acting Director of Corporate Services through the General Manager. Developer contributions shows a cumulative balance of internal borrowings of $38.2 million. This appears to indicate that money legally restricted for developer-funded infrastructure has been used for other council purposes. Can the Acting Director explain the legal and policy authority that permits this level of internal borrowing from restricted contribution plans? What is the detailed plan and timeline for repaying these borrowed funds to ensure that we can meet our infrastructure obligations to new developments as they fall due? And has this practice been reviewed and approved by our Audit and Risk Committee, and does it comply with?
Sorry, is the assertion in order that the council is using Section 94 funds for other than the purpose than it ought to? Because the council doesn't do that. So we collect Section 94 or Section 711 funds for a particular purpose in accordance with a plan, and that's how we expend those funds. We've reported to council if it's anything other than that. So think it was the Greater Taree plan. There's several reports on Greater Taree and the use of Section 94 funding for Haddelays Point. They've all been reported to council. So the policy would be spend the money in accordance with the plan before money otherwise is spent, and it's not. But if it is, there'll be a report to council for the expenditure of those funds. If there's something in particular we need to look at, I'm happy to look at it. But that's generally the policy position of the council.
Thank you, GM. Do you have a further question, or I'll come back to Councillor Miller?
I've had a couple, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor, and I note Councillor Howard for his support. Thank you very much. My question is to the Executive Manager of Liverpool Open Space, Public Spaces. Thank you. I will learn. My question is regarding the Manning Entertainment Centre, which does relate to my questions earlier, and I flagged that we would come back to this. So there's a staff increase of $108,000, which is casual employees for events, which is offset by an amount in entrepreneurial and external productions. Also, kiosk income is up to offset extra expenditure. My question is, a ticket isn't sold till it's sold, and a drink's not sold until it's sold. So to what extent is that expenditure tied to the income, i.e. are we simply busier, so both are going up? Or what is the risk that we're going to approve extra expenses and then we're not able to sell the tickets or sell the drinks that we think we might?
Through the General Manager, great question.
Thanks.
It's not an exact science. So we're forecasting what we think the likely expenditure will be and income will be for the next 6 months. We do review those figures on a quarterly basis as per the report in front of you. Because we are seeing higher activation, we are requiring additional casual staff to work both behind the bar to drive that income that we talk about through kiosk sales, but also through ticket sales. I don't feel like have I answered your question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I suppose all I can do is take the professional advice and flag it for future, keeping an eye on it, because of course, if we're busy, then we have the expense because you need an usher standing there, but then we haven't sold any tickets, then the income doesn't drive it. So a word of caution, I suppose, on counting on ticket sales and kiosk sales that have not yet occurred.
Yeah.
My other question, which you have alluded to, is staff behind the bar and things. Has there been a reduction in use of or reliance on volunteers at the entertainment centre, and is that driving cost increases?
Not at all. No, we have a body of 40 volunteers who assist to provide services at the MEC, invaluable in terms of providing that service to the broader community, and that number's been relatively constant.
Good to hear. Thank you. My last question, if I may, Mayor, which I apologise to the same Executive Manager, is on street cleaning. I think that's street cleaning. Oh, that's wrong. I'm going to go to the General Manager, the appropriate director. On street cleaning, there's the increased expenditure of $150,000 for a contractor for 6 months due to the failure of council equipment. Are there any savings to offset that? Like if we're contracting someone to do it, are we saving some staff? And given the failure of that equipment, are there any learnings? Was it maintained in the normal way? What's driven that?
It's in part not just a failure of equipment, it's also the inability to resource the role to be able to operate. Over that, the street sweeper operates in really unusual hours, and as a general replacement, if people aren't available who are contracted or engaged for that hours, it's difficult to force other staff to work those hours. So in keeping the service going, we have appointed or used contract resources to keep the service function moving in some respects, and that reflects the additional costs in doing that. What this will do is prompt a review so that we can look at, are we getting best value out of that and the way that we're currently operating.
The report, of course, only says equipment failure. It doesn't say recruitment challenges, but I do take your point on equipment challenges. Was there an equipment failure?
There was, yes. So there was a breakdown in the equipment, and then that was followed by a lack of resource ability to fill the requirements for operating it.
All right. And that equipment has been maintained in the normal way, or it's under warranty, or is there any learnings from, or is it just, equipment fails sometimes?
Yes, sometimes even the most maintained equipment sometimes does fail, particularly with devices like street sweepers where you're dealing with high pressure fluids, a lot of mechanical moving parts. There is normal wear and tear, and then there's just some unavoidable failures where, in particular, these items of plant, sometimes we have to bring spares in from overseas, and there's the time and costs associated with getting them here into Australia if there's not an adequate number of spares kept within Australia. So it's sort of a bit of a lottery when it comes down to some of those things, and you can get lucky and you can also get unlucky. This time we're doubly unlucky.
So then my last part of that question, if we're saying it's $150,000 extra for the contractor, have we netted off any savings in the vacant staff positions and other savings? Obviously, we're not doing it ourselves and we're outsourcing it.
Yeah, potentially there is associated with that where we haven't had the resource available, and I just have to, they probably show up in a different area within the budget that needs to be accumulated. Obviously, we're looking at over expenditure more than under expenditure.
Sure. Well, I'm looking at net expenditure. So if it was all in the same dot point, then it would be easier to understand. But I take your general point. Thank you.
So to add that, we would have saved wages, we would have saved fuel expenses and our own plant running costs. So, and this particular plant item was relatively new in the program. So when I say relatively new, less than 5 years old. So it was not sort of kept too long or anything like that. It's just a failure that happened with the auger. So one of those things that happen sometimes with mechanical devices.
Perhaps I could ask, I think this is under you, Corporate Services Acting Director. In this report then, of course, it's the net that's important. So I understand, so you're saying it's $150,000 extra for the contractor, but the Director, you've both made the point that there are savings elsewhere in this report, but our eyes go to the net. So it's very hard for us to tie, 2 pages down, a human resources saving is tied to that extra expenditure. So there's an ability to show the net or the flow-on effects in other areas. It would be helpful to reflect that in the report.
Yep, absolutely take that on board. It is difficult to do because when you have leave entitlements, the person that's not operating it may be on leave. There's still an expense associated with that. So it is very hard to quantify, but we can probably try and do at least some dialogue in there about that as a option.
Yeah. Any further questions? Councillor Beasley?
Councillor Miller has asked some of my questions. And I have copied over a few questions a couple of times because it was first thing in the morning. Nevertheless, there's only 2 questions that I wish to ask. And the first would be to, through the General Manager, to the Executive Manager of Public Spaces. Can we be provided with more detail on the $1 million insurance recovery for asbestos cleanup? What was the actual cost to council, and are there other outstanding insurance claims related to the flood?
Through the General Manager, the total cost of asbestos cleanup was in the order of $1.7 million. As you acknowledge, we've received a $1 million payment so far, and we're anticipating a successful outcome on the balance of funds in the not too distant future.
And my last question to the through the Mayor to the General Manager. What are the current legal actions requiring the $120,000 increase in legal fees, and what are the risks?
Couldn't answer which particular legal actions are included in that, but what I can say, costs. Sorry?
I can't necessarily ask.
Well, I don't.
That.
No. I don't know which current matters result in the increase in costs. So I could answer it generally that way. What I can say though, costs fluctuate. So on one of the items on the current matters, this will be Palms Lakes Resort or Palm Lakes Works, that we had a successful judgment against Palm Lakes. So, we were awarded $700,000 worth of costs and fines of $643,000, and there were some incidentals as well that are coming our way. I can tell you, as of earlier this week, we've received $700,000 of that. So that will end up going back into legal of some sort. So when I say they fluctuate, they do fluctuate because in a number of our legal proceedings, we do have costs awarded in our favour, but it does take time for those costs to flow through. I couldn't tell you which particular matters, and because I just don't know, but it fluctuates. There are no risks insofar as the legal proceedings, because the matters we generally are up against are ones where we're the defendant, generally. So we generally being we're defending a council decision on a DA, we have to defend that. So we have to spend the money. We're not a council that says, well, we won't defend the decision of the council. So the risk is low. honestly, in the jurisdiction that we're in, particularly in Class 1, costs follow the event. So, and that benefits both parties. It benefits applicants who probably can't afford to run the proceedings, because if they lose, they don't have to pay our costs. So it's an open type of jurisdiction. Other jurisdictions are generally different, but for Class 1, where the majority of our legal fees go, that's the jurisdiction. So the risk is low, costs fluctuate, and I know I've got a substantial sum already received on account of legals anyway.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd just like to speak to this motion if I could. It was something that I had read at the end of the auditor's report, which I really should have known, and I think all councillors should be aware of. So I'll quote from it, a statement from page 83, statement of the independent auditor's report. The councillors' responsibilities for the financial statements. The councillors are responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with Australian Accounting Standards and the Local Government Act 1993, and for such internal control as the councillors determine is necessary to enable the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. In preparing the financial statements, the councillors are responsible for assessing the council's ability to continue as a going concern, disclosing as applicable matters related to going concern, and using the going concern basis of accounting. Most of that I understand, some of it I don't. This is a very big responsibility that we have as councillors now that we are placed in this particular position with the new Code of Meeting Practice. I'm afraid that I will just be this person who gets up and keeps on asking the questions, because this burden in its, which is stated in the auditor's report, I think we should all take quite seriously. So I hope that we all are standing up, and it's not just me looking like the guy who's continuing to ask the questions, that we all ask the questions, and I'm sure you'll have different questions than me. The only other thing I would add is that on page 84, it continues, the scope of my audit, that was Cathy Wu, does not include nor provide assurance that the council carried out its activities effectively, efficiently and economically. And that sends just a slight chill down my back.
I might ask the General Manager to comment on that, because...
Yeah, I'll make there's a couple of comments I would make. You've probably read out a general obligation that applies to council laws. That's always applied. Council has governance arrangements in place to ensure our statements are robust. You can't get any more evidence of the robustness of our statements when the draft is pretty much adopted. And that's clearly articulated in council reports. We have an ARIC. All councils are invited to attend any ARIC to inform themselves. All the papers that go to our ARIC are available to all councillors. So it's incumbent on everyone in the room, councillors and staff, to be informed if that's part of their responsibility. I don't know what else to say. I'm not sure about that last comment, because
I can comment on that. I can comment on that, because what she was stating with that last comment is she's engaged to do a particular job, and she was pointing out that she was not engaged to do a particular job over here, which is different. So, and the fact that she's saying that she didn't do that work, you're drawing along. Well, you're implying.
I was not casting any aspersion on council. I was actually pointing out something that's very important for councillors to understand.
Because she said that she did not comment on performance and efficiency, effectiveness. That shouldn't send any shivers down any back. She didn't look at it because she wasn't required to do it. But you were quite right in pointing out that we all have these very significant obligations, and that's why we do all the training for councillors, to actually teach you that you have these obligations and you are required to inform yourself. Coming to a council meeting and asking questions at a council meeting is only one way of informing yourself. You need to do the work outside of the council meeting. You need to ask questions of staff outside of the council meeting. There's plenty of opportunities to do that, and we all have a very large obligation. Completely agree with you.
And outside of that, there's a statement from the reporting accounting officer, Phil Brennan, verifying the statements are true and correct, and that's contained in the papers that you have today.
Yes. Yes. Did you want to speak to it, Councillor Miller?
Thank you. I'll take the opportunity to speak to the motion and respond to Councillor Beasley's comment. He's absolutely right, and those responsibilities have always been thus. There's no change there. And as we became councillors, it's a very important responsibility that we take on. The General Manager has answered in terms of ARIC. Of course, I'm the representative on ARIC. Councillor Tickle was on ARIC for some time and is very aware of how ARIC operates. Councillor Wilson has attended an ARIC meeting. The Mayor attends all ARIC meetings as an observer. I don't think any other councillors have attended an ARIC meeting yet, but the invitation remains open to them. We do receive monthly budget reviews. We do receive quarterly budget reviews. We do receive quarterly budget reviews, which we're discussing at the moment, and the annual statements are signed off by resolution of council. So on the last meeting in June, Councillor Beasley and others will remember that all councillors had to, accept the financial records as a true and correct statement and endorse that they be sent off to the audit office. So yes, there are many steps along the way. There are also the opportunities for training through Local Government New South Wales, which regularly have courses on financial training and other training for councillors that many councillors do take up and is paid for as part of their councillor allowance for that sort of training. It is very important that we all feel comfortable in doing the job that the public have enabled us and asked us to do on their behalf, and it is a very serious and responsible job that we undertake.
And I might add to that list, because I don't think you mentioned this, that ARIC meets with council outside of ARIC meetings once or twice a year, and you have opportunities to ask questions there. And of course, the external auditors present their report to councillors. So that's at least once a year as well.
We had our own financial governance review as well.
Yeah. So yes, you're right. It's a very onerous task, and we need to take it seriously. And you can be held liable if you don't. Would you like to speak to the meeting?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question to the Executive Manager of Public Spaces, and it's got to do with the skate park of all things. Would it be fair to say that you have a strategy for all public places and therefore items of work in that strategy that determine the next priority?
Through the General Manager, that is largely correct. We currently have a draft aquatic strategy on exhibition, and that will then complete the full suite of recreational strategic planning documents for council.
So therefore, the 34,000 wasn't just put to Taree, it was put to the next priority.
It had to be allocated to another project within the grouping, and that project, we already had a commitment to deliver that project.
Yep. So I would say that's the next priority. So there have been a lot of questions on this. This has been a very complex report. I think the flood has complicated things, lots of moving pieces, and hence I guess a lot of questions. I'm reassured that the questions that we've asked shows that there is process and understanding behind it. So thank you to your staff. You've had a bit of a grilling today, lots of questions. So please thank the staff that certainly I have trust in their processes, and there's a reason behind everything. And when you look at the report, you see all money moving about, and we sometimes don't understand that reasoning. So that's why we're asking the question. And I appreciate it's a really busy time for you, and it will be over the next 3-6 months, I'd say, maybe even 9, but depending when we get on top of the bulk of the flood repairs. So thank you very much. I commend the report. I'll be voting for it.
Thank you very much. Councillor O'Keefe.
Can we put this and move on with our lives?
Thank you. I was about to.
Thank you.
Councillor Tickle, you have a question or you want to speak to it?
You're on mute.
Need to switch your mic on.
Just on mute, councillor.
I think it's in pushing the phone, right?
No, he's got a problem.
Yeah, no, he's doing it on his phone.
Thank you. Sorry, Mayor. Yeah, look, I do wish to speak against, Mayor, just on a couple of points, and hope there may be acceptance of an amendment. Look, I accept that the questions have been answered on staff, and I will preface this by saying that with the skate park project, there was a lot of work done, a great relationship with the community in terms of the grant application process. There was a resolution to council to release Section 711 funds, former Section 94 funds for the purpose. There was a great community celebration for the opening of the skate park, and a wonderful rapport with the community and council. Where I'm a bit disappointed is that didn't extend a little bit further to fully inform the skate park committee. Here's what's happened. Now, I will say that let's say the project was nearing completion and were $34,000 short to complete. I would suggest that council staff would have come back to council and say, look, we've run a bit short. Can we have some more Section 711 funds, hypothetically? In this case here, staff have done a great job. They've come in under budget, so there's money left over. But I think the communication to the community in that regard would have been good, rather than me getting some phone calls and a text message and an email saying, look, we're a bit disturbed about this, that there's Section 711 funds being sent to another area, and that's how they've interpreted it. That could have been circumvented by some good communication with the skate park users or the committee. So for that reason, look, I want to commend the staff. The project came in under cost. I also acknowledge that the grant funds are permissible to be used for another like project. So there's nothing untoward with that, but I'm just a bit disturbed about the communication. And for that reason, if the mover and the seconder are agreeable, perhaps they would consider an additional dot point after the staff recommendation is that note that the transfer of funds from Blackhead Skate Park project were grant funds not required but permissible to be used for the Albert Street Amenities Taree project. That, to me, if they're accepting that, that will make it quite clear and transparent to the public where the funds actually came from.
Yeah, so you're just seeking to make it clearer and
Correct.
Improve the communications.
With
I'll put it to the mover and
if they're happy, man, I'll read it slowly, but it's up to the mover and second to agree first. Yep.
Well, just hang on a sec, because I may be the only person who remembers, but it was Councillor Irving and it was Councillor Beasley. So would you like to read that out more slowly? And if they agree, we can just insert it.
Okay. Note that the transfer of funds.
Excuse me, Councillor, we need to listen to what.
Okay, right. Note that the transfer of funds from the Blackhead Skate Park project were grant funds not required but permissible to be used for the Albert Street Amenities project.
Okay, so we'll just wait for the words to come up so people can read them. I'm speaking with a finger on the button, but I didn't push it. Councillor Irving and Councillor Beasley, are you happy for those words to be inserted at the end of the existing motion?
Yeah. Can I just,
You haven't got a microphone on, so what?
I'm quite happy with Councillor Tickle's amendment. The only thing I would ask right now is, it was my understanding that there's a 50-50 split for the Blackhead Skate Park. Is that not right? It was a complete grant.
Council received grant funding, so we either use the grant funding
For
or
what? 100%.
Yeah, all of it.
No.
All the grant funding that we received for
We-
this project not expended, which is $34,000. We either use it on Albert Street Amenities Project because it's part of that same grant pool, or we return the funds. That's the decision for the council.
So you're happy with it? Okay. So I think we've probably exhausted all the speakers. Got my fingers crossed. So then what you're looking for, councillors, when I put the motion is the existing motion as recorded in the paper with the addition of that bottom line there. So there it is. So you're happy with what we're doing? Because I'm going to ask you to vote on it. All right. All in favour? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, councillor Tickle's fine. And those against? Right. So we've got 2 councillors voting against and the remaining voted for. So the motion's carried. And that allows us to get on to the next one, which is the cash investments report, which is 17.4. This report provides details of the funds invested by Mid Coast Council under Section 625 of the Local Government Act 1993 as required by Clause 212 of the Local Government General Regulation 2021. Could I have a...
Just try and get energised, man. We can. I'm trying to wake everyone up. I'm happy to move it.
So I'm assuming you're moving.
I'll move
Thank
it.
you, Councillor Miller.
I
Thank
move
you.
that the report be received and noted.
Well, I'm glad you're waking yourself up. A seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. No, thank you. You know what it does to kids. Where am I at? So, Councillor Miller, did you wish to comment on this report?
Thank you, no.
Councillor O'Keefe? No. Any other councillors? No. I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? And those against? Okay, 1 councillor voted against, the rest for. Motion's carried. 17.5 is the proposed dedication of council-owned land for public road part 353 to 365 of Wingham Taree. Council's capital works program included completion of the reconstruction and upgrade of a section of Wingham Road in the vicinity of Colladong Road, and this is relevant. Mover, please. Councillor Howard, thank you.
I move the recommendation as printed.
Well done. Seconder, please. Second. Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Howard?
No, I do not.
Councillor O'Keefe?
No.
Any other councillors? Councillor Wilson, sorry.
Just a question to the Acting Director of Corporate Services. It states in this report that this is actually a component of larger pieces of work, and there have been those other pieces or land acquisitions have been put to council. Can we get some context of this road widening? Because all it says it's from 200 metres east of Cedar Party, but to where? So the public might like to know that.
I'm not sure if the Director of Infrastructure knows about this particular project because I don't know the details of the specific project.
This is the acquisition for the bridge work that's happened.
No, the one before that one.
Wingham.
Wingham Road's already.
Wingham Road.
Yeah, it's in relation to the works up around Colladong Road. There's a section of widening from there between, I think it's in the attachments, it shows it on the map between Cedar Party and heading down west. So it's simply the works were proceeded on the basis of a agreement of a certificate to enter. So that's where the property owner grants consent for us to enter upon to do the work on the basis that acquisition will follow by just terms.
So that's
Hang on a sec. So you're talking about acquisition? Because we're talking
dedication.
We're talking about dedication.
Yeah. So there's a statutory process that we follow in order to change the land from land that council owns or that council's responsible for to a public road.
Road reserve. So therefore the road's going to be widened. Is that what this pretext is?
That's my understanding.
And from Cedar Party west heading towards Wingham.
Just over the area that will be shown on the map where the acquisition is. Flick it up.
Okay. All right. So I feel like I'm missing context because they said that there were more acquisitions made in the area for this particular project. So maybe
they're separate. Each individual property may have a different level of impact associated with it. So there'll be different plans drawn for each one.
So I might ask you offline.
Thank you. Anything further on this item, or can I put it? I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. That's everybody. Motion's carried. 17.6, proposed acquisition of land for public road 176 Fairbairns Road, Forbesdale. Council's capital works program included the replacement of the Fairbairns Bridge across the Avon River along Fairbairns Road at Forbesdale. Move it, please.
Yes. For the mover, we just got to note a typo, so.
Yeah, just to draw councillors' attention to dot point 2, there's a typo in the DP number. It should be exactly the same as the DP number that's in the dot point 1.
Right.
So the minute takers have that correction.
Yes.
Just so everyone's aware.
So just read it out in full for clarity.
Microphone.
Oh, that's good, isn't it? We're referring to DP 795361 throughout. Anywhere it says 2, ignore it. All right.
And in the spirit of that,
So you actually need to move it.
yes, I move it as printed, noting the Mayor's correction that we're referring to 795-361. Thank you.
Thank you. That will do the job. And a seconder, please. Councillor O'Keefe. Certainly woken Councillor O'Keefe up.
There's a 6,000 hectare fire 4 kilometres from my house.
Yes, yes. And you've been working very hard down there.
I may go soon, yes.
Yes. All right. Does anyone wish to speak to it? No. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Everybody? Carried. 17.7 is Mid Coast Council's consultant panel. The report provides the outcomes of the open request for tender process to establish a panel of consultants to perform a range of professional consulting services covering geotechnical, environmental, surveying, utility service location and heritage and conservation planning. Move it, please. Thank you, Councillor Howard.
I move the recommendation as printed.
Seconder, please. Councillor Tickle. Thank you. Any speakers? Questions? No. Put the motion. All in favour? That is everybody. Carried. 17.8. Mid Coast Council Consultant Project Management Panel, similar to the last one. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Howard.
I move the recommendation as printed.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor O'Keefe. No debate? Put the motion.
None.
Thank you. That is everybody. Carried. All right. 18.1. It gets us to the end of those papers. I do need to note that there were some questions with notice from councillors that have been answered in the paper. Councillor Beasley asked some questions about impacts of the draft LEP, and Councillor Mackenzie also asked a question about the impacts of the draft LEP, but also Hunter JO's Arrow Collaborative Services and Isabella Street grant details. Those questions are answered in the published papers. That gets us through to a notice of a request for a leave of absence.
Yes.
So we might do that. I need to go back to item 6.1, noting that Councillor Mick Graham has been unable to get to the meeting despite his trying to do that, and has submitted a request for a leave of absence. So I move that Councillor Mick Graham be granted leave of absence in accordance with the relevant provisions of the Code of Meeting Practice. And I need a seconder. Sorry?
Alan.
Well, sorry, the fact I can look, but if people talk over here, I look over here. So I'm going to go with Councillor Miller because that's where I was looking and he had his hand up. Thank you.
Mayor, I would like to speak briefly to it.
Yes, you can do
Unless
that.
you wanted to as the mover.
No. So I moved it. You seconded it. You can speak.
I absolutely support the motion for the leave of absence. I also note that Councillor Tickle is, as we've previously approved, is on Zoom as he has unexpected carer responsibilities. But under the new code that the minister has imposed, it's changed significantly how councillors are able to undertake their duties as councillors. So Councillor Tickle, that there are ways that he may not have been able to attend by Zoom. It's just that he had unexpected carers responsibilities. And so as he should, and he's been able to and made a contribution to the meeting, attended by Zoom. But Councillor O'Keefe has been volunteering and fighting fires for days. As he mentioned, there's a fire getting close to his house. He should have been able to attend this meeting by Zoom. And it is quite ridiculous under the new ministerial code that he's not able to attend this by Zoom. He should have been able to be home, get a bit more sleep, be able to be nearby to battle a fire, and he could have quite well contributed to this meeting by Zoom. So it is a real shame that the new ministerial code does not allow that.
Well, it does allow unexpected carer leave. No, well, he's here. But I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to make the point that everybody around this table disagrees with the way the Code of Meeting Practice has been drafted with respect to that issue. And we have had discussions and submitted it to the Minister, and we will keep lobbying to try and get that changed. And yes, this council is very supportive of people being able to Zoom into meetings. All right, so that... did I take the vote? I didn't. No, I need to put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. That is everybody. And the last thing on the agenda is urgent business. So I just need to, was there something there?
Nothing else to be addressed earlier.
Okay, good. Urgent business, I just need to ask if there's any matters of urgent business that can't wait until a subsequent meeting. Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. The reason this can't wait is it's happening now. There is a 6,000 hectare fire burning 4 kilometres from Tea Gardens, is where I live, hence my anxiety today. I want to take this opportunity to thank the countless volunteers that have come down there to help from RFS brigades, including but not limited to Pindima Tea Gardens, Bulahdelah, North Arm Cove, Kupanook, Wootton, Tungurra, Hannumvale, Greenpoint, Diamond Beach, Rainbow Flat, Gloucester, Nabiac, Tanoni, Minambart, Lake Cat-Eye, Kings Creek, Warhope, Clarenstown and Maitland. Some of those aren't even in the same RFS district, which is larger than Mid-Coast Council's local government area, some 14,000 square kilometres. Those people took time off their normal lives and their normal jobs, something I wish I'd done today, to drive a very long distance to apocalyptic conditions. Something a lot of people don't know is the volunteers do 12-hour shifts, something I'd like to talk to the RFS about very soon. And that doesn't include the drive there and back. So for the likes of our Warhope volunteers, they've driven 2 hours to get there, do a 12-hour shift and then 2 hours back. I'm not sure how that's even legal. Thank you to the locals at Tea Gardens Hawksnest that have organised to feed many people, because as a volunteer on the fireground, I know we can't expect food on the fireground despite the 12-hour shift. And I think I'm going to be having a chat with some of my local brigade hierarchy about that, because I've done a few things they probably don't like, including organising food on my own. Also, we've had the Tea Gardens Fire and Rescue people standing by to protect the towns in the increasingly likely event that the fire gets into the grass paddocks to the northeast of town, which is the direction from which the wind is currently blowing. Stroud and Nabiac SES volunteers have helped deliver food to the troops in the field, and I must mention the Mid-Coast Council workers who put everything in to get power back to the Tea Gardens aquifer, which is where the drinking water to my town comes from. They brought in generators when it was made clear to them that the power was going to be cut by fire burning the power poles, and I saw them myself and had the opportunity to thank them. That's all. I'd like to get the hell out of here. It was just a mention, not a motion. Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you for doing that. And I'll just point out to people who may not realise that this fire started up near Narong and Bulahdelah and has burned out an enormous area. It's been burning since sometime in December, if I've correctly remembered that.
I've been told that this particular one was a lightning strike. The one in December was a separate fire.
Okay,
But
it's in,
I'm not
it's in the
entirely
same,
certain.
could well be.
It could be the same
It's in the
fire.
same area. I'm getting notifications all the time that the Narong fire has flared up. It's been a huge effort by the RFS and people like yourself, Councillor O'Keefe, and we're all very grateful for you and them. Thank you.
I will pass it on to the people in the field.
Yes, indeed. If there's nothing else, staff either? Yes? Sorry.
Mayor, I'd just like to advise councillors that there was a question on notice from the previous meeting, the 10th of December meeting, regarding the SRV funding and the borrowings, and that will be provided to councillors in the very near future and provided into the ordinary council report for the 25th of February.
Yes. We did have answers to questions taken on notice, which is actually good to have it in the program. So thank you. All right, if that's the end of it, I'll declare the meeting closed at about 4:05. Thank you everybody for your participation.
Thank you.